almost say that those diseases are eradicated. Why? Because of immunization. I believe lifestyle medicine is the vaccine that we need to put an end to chronic diseases. And we're going to start with a spark here in the Rio Grande Valley with this first Lifestyle Medicine Conference. I want to thank our guest speakers. We have Dr. Dysinger from Loma Linda, Dr. Gumalde, Angie's University, Dr. Bryce from Dallas, Dr. Tamaya from here, Dr. Ekumu from here. Am I missing anybody? For coming to this inaugural Lifestyle Medicine Conference. And our first speaker is Dr. Dysinger. I need to tell you something about Dr. Dysinger. I met Dr. Dysinger at the last Lifestyle Medicine Conference in Arizona. And then I was privileged to sit in one of his conferences in Peru. And there I asked him to join us here. He was brave enough to say yes. So I want to welcome Dr. Dysinger. Dr. Dysinger is an internationally sought after speaker and expert in lifestyle medicine, an active member of the faculty of Loma Linda University. He's a chair for the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine. He also sits on the board of American College of Preventive Medicine. Dr. Dysinger is the medical director of the Complete Health Improvement Program. He's executive officer, chief executive officer for Lifestyle Medicine Solutions. Dr. Dysinger comes to us with lots of knowledge and experience to start our conference on lifestyle medicine. Why do we need lifestyle medicine? Put your hands together and help me welcome Dr. Dysinger.
Good morning. It's exciting to be here in Rio Grande Valley. I've never been here before. It's exciting to look out and see everyone out there and to be able to talk about lifestyle medicine. I always love talking about lifestyle medicine. So there's a few faces in the audience that I'm familiar with, but most of the faces I'm not familiar with. Just out of curiosity, how many of you heard about lifestyle medicine within the last year? Okay. And how many of you, well, we'll just do two. So everyone else has known about lifestyle medicine for more than a year. Anybody known about lifestyle medicine for more than a year? Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is basically give some definitions of lifestyle medicine. So this may be repeat for some of you, and then talk about what's driving the interest in lifestyle medicine right now. I loved what Dr. Cooper-Dockery said as far as lifestyle medicine is the vaccine for chronic disease. I think that's a very good analogy. And by the way, great kudos to Dr. Cooper-Dockery for putting on this conference. I really appreciate that. So then one of the things that I do right now is I practice medicine in a little bit of a different way than I was trained to practice medicine. So we're going to talk about that as well. So this is the definition of lifestyle medicine that I like to talk about. And I think it's worthwhile spending a little bit of time on this slide just to emphasize the things that I have highlighted. So the first is that lifestyle medicine is evidence-based. There's a lot of things that are out there right now. We need to change medicine this way. There's integrative medicine, alternative medicine. There's a variety of different things that are discussed. But for something to really change science, it needs to be evidence-based, and lifestyle medicine is evidence-based. Lifestyle medicine also is good for individuals and communities. Lifestyle medicine, as I practice lifestyle medicine in my practice, I'm working with patients one-on-one individually. We also work in groups in my practice quite a bit. But lifestyle medicine also is needed for communities. So that's why I'm excited about Get Healthy Rio Grande Valley, because it's the whole community that's getting involved. And that's the real win for lifestyle medicine. One of the biggest reasons that we're in the place that we are right now as far as chronic disease is concerned is because we've made certain cultural choices, certain community-based cultural choices that have gotten us down the wrong path. And obviously we never said as a community, oh, we're going to make the wrong health choice. And by community, I'm talking about small communities or, local communities like the Rio Grande Valley, as well as whole countries, in fact, the world as a whole. We've made choices, and the real big win is to change that culture, so we're not making those choices as a culture. But that's hard to do, and really the only way you can do it is by doing things like what's happening right here, right now, which is to start locally and change the culture locally. So lifestyle medicine is for individuals and communities. It's about lifestyle changes, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We use the words prevent, treat, and reverse in lifestyle medicine. So there's not a lot of talk about reversal of chronic disease. We talk about preventing it. We talk about treating it. We have a whole $3 trillion healthcare system that's based on treating chronic disease. But what we need to be doing is actually reversing it. And we know we can, in fact, reverse it with lifestyle medicine. And then lifestyle medicine also focuses on root causes, underlying causes, which is really what we have to do if we're going to be preventing, treating, and reversing. So this is the slide that I show the most in my life. I show this to a pretty high percentage of my patients. I have it on a poster in my various clinics. It's originally developed by Dr. Mark Brayman, who was the first executive director of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and one of the first presidents of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. I've modified it some since then, but it shows surgery, prescriptions, physiology, and lifestyle. And the key thing behind this is when I was in medical school, and how many of you here are healthcare professionals? So you're either in training or becoming a healthcare professional. So a fair number of you. So the whole healthcare system is based primarily on these top two parts of the triangle. So I was trained as a physician to write medication prescriptions, to do procedures. This is what this $3 trillion healthcare system is based on doing. And that works well if our problem is chronic disease. But the issue is in lifestyle in the US right now, and in fact in the world, acute disease, which this is really good for, is not what drives us. It's chronic disease. It's 80% of our healthcare issues are chronic disease. And we're just not trained in this. So what I tell my patients is, if you wanted to build yourself a fancy retirement house, and you went to a builder and said, I want a 3-story house, I want it to be top-notch, I want it to be the best in the world, and the builder said, okay, I'm really good at second and third floors. That's what I'm great at. That's what I'll help you build, is a second and third floor. I don't really do foundations because I expect my clients to take care of the foundation themselves. I can work a little bit on first floors, but I need you to help work on that. But once you're done with that, I'll do the second and third floor. Obviously, if you're building a building, you'd never hire that builder, right? You need the builder that will do the whole thing. But that's exactly what we do in the healthcare system. We have a healthcare system that does the second and third floor, but it doesn't do the foundation, it doesn't do the first floor. And if you think about it, it's sort of ludicrous, right? It's crazy that our healthcare system doesn't do the foundation. So I want to talk a little bit more about these 4 areas: the nourishment, movement, resilience, and connectedness. So these are the areas that we think we should focus on in lifestyle medicine. There's different ways of cutting this. There's a variety of ways of dividing it, but we like to keep it simple in 4 areas. This actually originally comes from Dr. Dean Ornish. He used slightly different words, but the idea that lifestyle medicine involves these 4 core areas comes from him. So just a little bit more about each area. Nourishment is actually anything that comes into our body. So it's obviously food. It's also liquids, anything that comes into our body from a liquid perspective. It's also anything else that we're exposed to. So it could be tobacco smoke. It could be toxic substances, pollutants out there. I actually believe that toxicology and environmental health is incredibly important, more important than we give it credit for as far as lifestyle medicine is concerned. Movement or physical activity involves a variety of different things: cardiovascular fitness, strength fitness, flexibility. It also involves the atmosphere in which we participate in movement. So things like going outside, exposing yourself to fresh air and sunshine, that can actually be very important as far as your overall lifestyle and how you participate in movement. It also involves just other things that we do. Are we taking the elevator instead of the stairs? Are we, yesterday at Dallas-Fort Worth, I walked from Terminal A to Terminal B rather than get in the shuttle. And in fact, it was interesting this morning. I'm in the Cambria Hotel, which is, quarter block away, a quarter mile away, a tenth of a mile away, and they offered to take me here in a shuttle. The hotel offered to take me here in the shuttle. But that's the kind of thing, again, that we have to change in our culture, that's not something we even offer people. We just expect them to walk. So you may have heard the terminology, sitting is the new smoking. That's one of the other areas that we need to think about in movement. So movement is not just pushing yourself into movement, it's also stopping yourself from doing totally sedentary things all the time. So I love it in my talks if people get up and stand while I'm talking rather than just sit while I'm talking. So all of these things are movement. So we talked about nourishment, we talked about movement. These are the pillars of lifestyle medicine. The next pillar is resilience, and resilience involves 3 things. The first is the idea of sleep. We know there's a lot of research on the value of sleep. The goal is to sleep 7 or 8 hours a night. I tell people that if you're not sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night, you're putting yourself in a position as if you're a smoker or something like that. The research is that strong. In fact, I can remember when I was in medical school and residency, there was some pride by certain people on how much they slept. I can get by with only 4 hours of sleep a night or only 5 hours of sleep a night. And nowadays it feels to me like if you're proud of how little you sleep and how little sleep you can get by with, that's sort of like saying I'm proud that I'm a smoker, because there's that much evidence around sleep. So sleep is incredibly important. To sleep well, we have to manage stress well. So as I interact with patients, my experience is that if someone's struggling sleeping, almost always, not 100% of the time, but almost always, the reason they're struggling is because they're not managing stress. Their mind is very active. They wake up and they can't get their mind back to sleep. It's something that I actually work on for myself. In fact, I consider sleep to be my thermometer for stress. So if I'm not sleeping well, that means I'm not managing my stress well. So they're very connected under resilience. So we have to have tools for managing stress for our patients and for ourselves. So it's not just about sleep and stress. It's also about giving ourselves an opportunity for rest and renewal. There's some good work done on the power of full engagement. So good employees not only sleep well and manage their stress well, but they give themselves downtime. So for an athlete, I've had the chance of running some marathons, and if you're training for a marathon, you push yourself, you push yourself, you push yourself, and then you give yourself a recovery week, and then you push and push and push and give yourself a recovery week. If you just keep pushing yourself, you'll never have a good marathon. You have to give yourself this rest and renewal time, this recovery week, and that's important in various phases. So you need to do it sort of moment by moment. Give yourself downtimes daily, which is mainly sleep, weekly, so we have weekends, we have Sabbaths, that kind of thing, and annually, so giving yourself time to step away for vacations and that type of thing as well. Okay, and then the final area, so we talked about nourishment, we talked about movement, we talked about resilience. The final area is connectedness, and in our practice we talk about something that we call horizontal connectedness, which is this idea of family and friends, groups, social support systems, and then we also talk about something we call vertical connectedness, which is the idea that your spirituality, your connection to your higher power, however you want to name your spirituality, that is important as far as health. So you need to have that vertical as well as the horizontal connectedness. So that's a little bit about the definition of lifestyle medicine. What I want to talk about now is why lifestyle medicine is becoming significant. And just to give you a background, I was lucky enough to be involved in the starting of the lifestyle medicine movement, which the American College of Lifestyle Medicine was started about 12 years ago. And so there was a variety of things that were coming about. But over the last few years, the lifestyle medicine movement has taken off. As Dr. Cooper-Dockery talked about, there's a very active Latin American Lifestyle Medicine Association. We have Dr. Nahum Garcia here, who's one of the leaders of that movement. There's here in the U.S., the number of people involved in lifestyle medicine has increased dramatically. It went from a couple hundred people as little as 6 or 7 years ago to well over 2,000 people now. It's a growing movement, and there's a variety of reasons why. So one of the reasons why is because of this chronic disease epidemic. So this is a picture that I think illustrates the chronic disease epidemic as much as anything. So this is the increase in diabetes from 1958 to 2009. So you can see I was born back in this era, and there's about 1% of the population that had diabetes. And you can see the increase, just a steady increase, and then it starts increasing more. So this was a slide that I was showing in talks for several years. But then in 2015, so actually even this is not 100% up to date, but in 2015 in JAMA, there was published another article, and that took this data from 2009 to 2012, and it put this line on the end of this. So this article said that they estimated the actual prevalence of diabetes was closer to 14.3%. And then there was prediabetes, which was 38%. So this was the article in JAMA that estimated 14.3% and 38%. So you put those two together, it's 52.3% of the population has either prediabetes or diabetes. So we went from 1% to 52.3%, which is crazy, right? I mean, that's just idiotic. And I think that happened on my watch. That happened as I was a physician. That happened as I was trying to reverse disease in people. So we can't have this. And this is happening not just in the U.S. This is a U.S. statistic, but this is happening all around the world. we can't have that. It's ridiculous. We have to do something to change that, and we can do something to change that. And lifestyle medicine is at least part of what we need to be doing. I think if you look at lifestyle medicine as it's done individually, as well as lifestyle medicine as it's done in communities, it's the biggest thing we can do to change this. So just another slide emphasizing the chronic disease epidemic. So these are people in the U.S. who have multiple chronic conditions. It actually is comparing several different countries here. You can see 42% of the people in the U.S. have 3 or more chronic conditions. These are things like obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, chronic diseases. So total of 42%, which is crazy, and it's more than any other country. It's obviously significant in all countries. 26%, so most countries have around this number. They have at least 2 chronic conditions. And then even all the other countries, chronic conditions are there in almost all adults. So this is a big issue. We have to do something about this chronic disease epidemic. And some people say, well, it's just because we're living longer. That's a part of it, but I can tell you, you wouldn't have this just because we're living longer. And we're going to talk more this afternoon about some of the reasons why this is. I mean, we have to understand why this is, right? It's crazy. So the chronic disease epidemic is one of the reasons why lifestyle medicine is of interest right now. Another significant reason is because of healthcare costs. So here in the U.S., we're very familiar with healthcare costs. I was talking to someone recently who is having to pay about this is someone who's in their 50s. They're having to pay $900 a month for health insurance. $900 a month for health insurance, and there's a $6,000 deductible for that health insurance. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. So there's $9,000 a year they're paying for health insurance, and $6,000. The first $6,000 have to come out of their pocket. It's just crazy. So this is looking at medical costs for a family of 4, and you can see it's about $25,000. The average medical cost per person in the U.S. right now is over $10,000. That includes some seniors and people at the last stages of life that have high health costs, but it's just crazy. And if you look at employers are spending $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 per employee for healthcare on average. This slide to me is fascinating. This is healthcare costs in 5 different countries, and it's interesting how in younger ages the healthcare costs are about the same, but as we hit around 60 in the U.S. it just takes off like this. And other countries keeps going at more or less the same level. So why do you think this is? Why do healthcare costs go crazy in the U.S.? Well, part of it is that previous slide where there's more chronic conditions here, and those chronic conditions start being costly. But part of it is also the fact that around here is where Medicare kicks in. And in the U.S., Medicare has historically been a blank check to physicians and hospitals. So we can bill Medicare and they'll pay for just about anything. And no matter how ethical we are in the healthcare system, if we're given a blank check, we're going to abuse that some. So some of this is just because we're doing way too much stuff that we don't really need to do because Medicare has sort of been a blank check. So it's multiple reasons, but it's a very significant slide. So a third reason why lifestyle medicine is significant right now is because of science. So science is really driving lifestyle medicine as well. So just to give you a few examples of how science is driving lifestyle medicine. This is from the Diabetes Prevention Program. If you look at the reference here, this is actually an old reference, so this was published clear back in 2002, so 16 years ago. But what it shows is that this study took people who were pre-diabetic, so they were people who are at risk for diabetes, and it divided them into 3 groups. So one group just got usual care, which is the placebo group. Another group got metformin, which is the most common medicine that we use for diabetes. And then the third group were treated with lifestyle. So they were treated with nutrition, exercise, the 4 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Although it's primarily nutrition and exercise if you look at the details of the study. And what they found is that the lifestyle group developed diabetes at a much lower rate than the metformin group and the placebo group. In fact, it was 58% lower. So this was so significant that they actually stopped this study early. They planned to continue this study for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. But after 4 years, they said, it's not ethical for us to give everybody lifestyle. We have to give everybody lifestyle. We can't leave people in the placebo group. That's not ethical. So they quit the study so that they could give everybody lifestyle medicine. Now, this was 16 years ago, and just to show you how slow it takes us to move from research into policy, just this year, so 16 years later, Medicare is actually starting to pay for this diabetes prevention program. So it took that, and I can tell you that they're paying so poorly that is my practice. We're a lifestyle medicine practice. We looked into getting reimbursed for providing this program, and we're not even doing it. It's easier for us to get paid through other means when we're trying to reverse prediabetes. But the point is, lifestyle works better than medications and better than placebo. Okay, so that was a long study. That took over 4 years. This is a short study. This is literally a 4-week study. These were people with high cholesterol, and some of them were given, again, usual care. Others were given a medication, lovastatin, which is one of the most common cholesterol medications. And then others were given lifestyle. And you can see the people that were given aggressive lifestyle, and what aggressive lifestyle was here was oatmeal, soybeans, almonds, eggplant, and okra. So they were given a lot of high fiber foods, whole, natural, high fiber foods. And their cholesterol dropped as rapidly on the lifestyle as it did on the medications. And in fact, it was slightly more on the medications, but at 2 weeks, but at 4 weeks, the lifestyle and the medications were getting closer. So lifestyle not only works long-term, you can apply aggressive lifestyle and get very dramatic short-term changes. So another study. So when I talk about lifestyle medicine, one of the things that is discussed frequently is, but we can't really get people to change. We can't really get people to change their lifestyles. And if they do change their lifestyles, that doesn't stick. So they'll change it, but it becomes a short-term change. So this is a study. This study has nothing to do with lifestyle. It's looking at people who had a heart attack and looking at how well they continue taking their medications after a heart attack. So when you have a heart attack, it's recommended that you're started on a statin to lower your cholesterol, a beta blocker to slow your heart rate down, and an ACE inhibitor to help you with heart function. So these people had a heart attack. All of them were prescribed these medications, and then over time, less and less of them kept taking them. So you can see actually here at about 18 months, there was about 70% of the people that were still taking their medication. You get clear out to 36 months and it's closer to 40% or so. But at 18 months, about 70% are still taking their medication. So the point is, people don't take their medications the way they're prescribed either. And then if you move to this study, which is a lifestyle medicine study, so this was the CHIP program. which was an intensive lifestyle change program. So these people went through this CHIP program. They changed their lifestyle dramatically. And then what we did is we measured how well they changed their lifestyle at 18 months. So if you look here, this is the percent that were still physically active at 8 months, the percent that were still decreasing their total calories. They were eating more fruits and vegetables. They were eating less saturated fat, more fiber, etc. And it's interesting because this is also in the neighborhood of 70%. So you can say lifestyle medicine doesn't work, and that's true. 18 months out, only about 70% of people were still achieving the lifestyle changes that were recommended in this program. This program was a 4-week program. So 18 months out, there was 70% that were still achieving their lifestyle changes. But that's no better, or that's no worse than medications, right? So if lifestyle medicine doesn't work, then medicine doesn't work. And we were just, I was talking with Dr. Grimault, the next speaker, earlier about how if you're spending $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month on, not a month, a year on healthcare, which is what most employers are spending for their employees, we should be having lifestyle available. You can do the CHIP program now for $125. $125 for the CHIP program. What do you think it costs for a medication for diabetes, or a medication for your high blood pressure? Why not do this program? This program instead of prescribing these medications. It actually has better results as far as disease reversal, and costs way less. So we need to be doing this kind of thing more. Okay, so I know we're a little off timing wise. Do I have another 10 minutes or so? Okay. So that's the definition of lifestyle medicine, and that's a little bit about what's driving lifestyle medicine. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how lifestyle medicine is actually different from other medicine. And to give you a little background on this, I spent most of my life in academia, so I was teaching in medical students and residents. But I realized that being part of this early lifestyle medicine movement, that one of the things that we really needed to do for lifestyle medicine to take off is show how it could be practiced differently, and also show that you could actually make a decent living as a physician practicing lifestyle medicine, because that's one of the challenges. Physicians have medical school debt. They need to make a reasonable living, and there weren't a lot of ways that really showed how practicing lifestyle medicine was different and how you could make a reasonable living doing that. So that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years, is trying to show that you can practice differently, get different kinds of results, get paid differently, and actually make a reasonable living doing that. So to achieve that, we started a practice called Lifestyle Medicine Solutions. We have 3 clinics that are in Southern California. We're trying to figure out ways of growing those. But we practice very differently. So just to give you an example, this is an electronic medical record. So nowadays, most people are practicing using electronic medical records. But whether you're using an electronic medical record or a paper charting system, the principles are the same. Usually the biggest parts of the chart are this section right here, which is a problem list, and this section right here, which is a medication list. So as a physician, if I'm seeing this patient, what pops up as I open up their chart is right in the center, the biggest area, a list of problems. Over here, the next biggest area, the next place your eyes go to, a list of medications. Here's allergies, directives, other things. But this is what I think of when I see my patients. Now, my reality is that patients are much more than a list of problems and a list of medications. So, and I'm sure we all agree that patients are this very dynamic, it's your family, it's your friends, it's the things that make you happy, the things that challenge you, the things that make you sad, it's multiple generations. This is really what my patients are about. what we've done in healthcare is we've said our patients are about a list of vital signs or about an EKG, a certain measurement. There's a little humanity to our patients, but this is sort of the typical picture that we've done in healthcare. What we're trying to do in lifestyle medicine is say, no, it should be like this, where our patients as a whole person, as this dynamic thing is the center of healthcare. We still measure. These measurements are important, but this is really what our patients should be about. Now, why is this important? It's important because of this statement by Peter Drucker. You only manage what you can measure. So if we spend our time measuring things like blood pressure, that's what we're going to spend our time managing. If we spend our time measuring things like problems and medications, that's what we're going to spend our time managing. So I believe that to really practice lifestyle medicine well, you have to measure differently. So this is what we do in our practice. We do regular vital signs, so when people come in, we'll weigh them, we'll take their blood pressure, but we also do something called the lifestyle medicine vital signs. It's the 4 areas that we talked about. It's nourishment, movement, resilience, and connectedness. So we actually measure those on every single patient when they come in. We've tried measuring it using pictures. This is what we're currently doing to measure it. We give them this piece of paper, and they literally mark down on nourishment. I'm either doing excellent or horrible or somewhere in between. Likewise with movement, resilience, and connectedness. Now, just to give you a quick story, this was a patient of mine, came in 16 years old, and he was obese, he was overweight, and this was his lifestyle medicine vital sign. So strong, not too bad on nourishment, not too bad on movement, but terrible on resilience, and not that great on connectedness. This was his BMI and his weight. So I saw him and said, we need to work on things. So the first visit, I actually prescribed some more in the way of food, and actually I worked on these 2 things because that's what he thought he needed to work on. But I also just started getting to know him because I knew that resilience and connectedness were probably things he needed to work on. He hadn't identified that, but I knew from the vital signs that that was something he needed to work on. And so I started asking him to do things like think about 3 things that make you happy. And basically what I did is I just listened to him. He would come in every few weeks. I actually had to push his family to bring him in regularly. But we were able to have 4 visits. And this sort of shows what happened. By the 5th visit, he lost 26 pounds. His BMI was down to 31.6. His anxiety and depression were much better. And he said, I decided I could talk and be vulnerable with my friends. So because I had listened to him, I had helped him with his resilience, I'd encouraged him with connectedness. And it wasn't just me, but certainly the kinds of things that we were doing that we learned because we were measuring things differently helped this gentleman to really turn his life around and feel good about himself rather than feel poorly about himself. Okay, I'm going to skip over these because we're running behind, but we have a whole team and we have coaches. So this is the triangle that we saw before. If we're going to measure differently, we also need to treat differently. So if we're going to start, if we're not just doing this, if we're doing all of this, we have to have treatments that begin with lifestyle and then go to this physiology, which is like supplements and those kind of things. So just a little bit about the kinds of things we do with treatment. And I'll talk more about this afternoon when I talk about food. We'll give a lot of examples of specific ways we prescribe food. But this would be one example of a way we prescribe food. So we actually, I like to say I prescribe as much food as I prescribe medicine. So literally people will walk out with this type of prescription, where they're being asked to eat cruciferous vegetables 1 cup every day. So we have to be prescribing like that if we're doing lifestyle medicine well. Now we mentioned the next area, the physiology area. That's mainly supplements. We do some in the way of supplements, but in my research with the supplement industry, this is the professional organization for supplements. They give themselves a nice name, Council for Responsible Nutrition, but they're actually not very interested in nutrition. So I was interested in trying to have a dialogue with them about science-based supplements, and they basically wouldn't talk to me. So I'm not a big fan of theirs. So there is a place for supplements, I think. I think I'd rather give my patient a supplement than a medication, if at all possible. But it needs to be evidence-based. It's really hard to find the evidence-based for supplements to a large extent. These are different organizations that will evaluate supplements to some level. So if you're taking a supplement or you're prescribing supplements, they should be certified by some of these. And there's other things, but it's a difficult world to work in the supplement world. But there still is a place for that, I think, in that treatment triangle. Okay, just other things that we do. We look at groups. We do a lot of groups in our practice. Health behavior change, lifestyle medicine is about health behavior change, and health behavior change tends to happen best in a group, in a community. Plus, we believe it's an efficient and effective way from a financial perspective. So we do a lot of groups. We divide our groups into 3 different areas. We do what we call educational groups, clinical groups, and support groups. And I won't go into all the details of these. The one that I think is most important is our support group. This happens, we have several of these every week, and patients can come, they can talk about what they're doing as far as their lifestyle. It feels, it's almost like an AA meeting. It's where people come and they sort of check in, they talk about what's challenging them, and then they do a checkout, they set goals. And if you look at, just again, flying here, I was looking at a book in one of the bookstores in the airport, and it was talking about habits and changing habits. And it talked about one of the core things you need to do with changing habits is have accountability. This is an accountability source, and we need that in our lives. I know for me, for my exercise, if I tell someone I'm going to exercise with them, I'll do that. But if I tell myself I'm going to exercise, I probably don't do it, I don't know, a third of the time or half the time. So I need that accountability. It makes a big difference for me. So one of the things that we've developed in our practice is just to try to have a community in our practice. So I loved it when one of my patients has said, this has become sort of a hangout place. That's what we're trying to do with our groups in our practice. So just to give you another example, a patient example. So this is a 70-year-old gentleman who was morbidly obese. So you can see 404 pounds. And he knew about lifestyle medicine. He knew about eating healthy. He'd been to Dr. McDougall's program, who's one of the premier people in lifestyle medicine. But he had a hard time sticking to it. He had a hard time maintaining weight loss. So he joined our practice and joined our group. And over the course of 2 years, he's lost 130 pounds. He has ups and downs. He still has ups and downs. In fact, right at this moment, he's struggling a little bit. But right at this moment, he's not coming to our group right now. So we work hard with him, trying to keep him engaged. But the point is, this wouldn't have happened if he'd been on his own. He needed that accountability in that support group. We also do intensive lifestyle change programs. I wish I had more time to talk about those, but they're available in our practice. This is a definition of intensive lifestyle change. That's the idea that you can take people through lifestyle changes in a fairly rapid way. I mentioned earlier the CHIP program, which is one of the ways you can do that. This is an example of our diabetes prevention, arrest, and reversal program that we offer. So it's a 12-week program. Patients are involved in a variety of different things. They meet with a variety of different people in our office. They're part of our groups, but it works very well. And then just a quick story about someone that did that. This is a 70-year-old lady, started off with a hemoglobin A1C that was very high. She went through our program, and within 20 weeks, her hemoglobin A1C had literally halved. And we didn't use any medications whatsoever. This was all lifestyle change. So this stuff really works. It works really well. Why would you take a medication when you can get this kind of change? Now, the statistics on diabetes reversal, if you've had diabetes for a long time, you won't necessarily get results like this because your body does have trauma from the diabetes over time. But we do know that if you've had diabetes for less than 4 years, at least 80% of people can get this kind of result. So lifestyle medicine works very well for diabetics. And that's the end of my talk. Thank you.
So I wanted to thank Dr. Dysinger for his foundation on lifestyle medicine. Why do we need lifestyle medicine? So that was a good presentation. He's going to be back this evening. So after lunch, I want you to make sure you're here. Now, I must take the time to welcome our international guest. We have Dr. Garcia Naon, who is the Director for Health Sciences at University of Montemorelos. And as mentioned, say hello, Doc, put your hands up. And he's also a founder of the Latin American Lifestyle Medicine Association. He's a very busy doctor. We have Dr. Flores. Where's Dr. Flores? Logan? He is also from Mexico, international speaker who will be speaking in Europe in a couple of days, right? At the International Lifestyle Medicine Association meeting. Murillo, Dr. Murillo. So we have a lot of international speakers. I want to welcome them. I'm very happy they're supporting us, and the students as well from Montemorelos, we welcome you. And we welcome everybody. Dr. Santana from Dallas has just joined, so I want to welcome you again. He's going to be speaking this morning, so you'll hear him as well. Now, we have our next speaker. I met Dr. Gumalt from Andrews University in Mexico when she spoke on exercise medicine. And then later on, maybe a couple of weeks ago, I went to another conference where she spoke in Dallas again, exercise medicine. So, Dr. Gumalt, name is very difficult. She's the director of the University Health and Wellness Center at the University of Andrews. I want to welcome you to South Texas. It is not so hot today. Well, usually we're warm and you're coming from the cold. But I know you have a beautiful presentation, so welcome. Help me welcome Dr. Gumalt.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are you? Thank you for this warm welcome, and I just want to say your weather is beautiful. I love seeing the sun. Yesterday evening I stepped out of the airport and just felt so good. Two mornings ago I woke up and I saw white snow coming down. So we've still had snow up until Monday, and it's been so bitter cold. So I'm really, really happy to be here and join you for this. So I don't know what your background is. I don't know what it is you do. I don't know if you're a healthcare professional or in training or whatever it is that you do. But no matter what you do, I want to invite you this morning, as we spent some time together, to not just think about everything that is presented here today in terms of what you need to do for your practice to help other people, although that's a big part. I also want you to think about yourself today. I want you to start being self-critical and thinking about your own lifestyle and seeing what it is that you could change. Is that okay for you? Yes? Okay. Well, first and foremost, I would like you to think about how many minutes you have already set on your gluteus maximus this morning and not done anything. This is the moment where everybody starts feeling uncomfortable and y'all look to the side. Is she talking to me now? Yes, I am. So what we're going to do to start with right now is we're going to move a little. Is that okay? All right, so that means you need to get up. All right, I'm going to come down to you. You're so far away. All right, so today, obviously, we're going to talk about exercise. We're going to talk about movement. We can't really do that unless we move. It seems hypocritical, right? So you guys are you afraid to move? Are you okay? Okay, you're all not sure what's coming. I know that's the problem. That's okay. We're going to do this very easy. Just feel comfortable. I want you to start walking in place just where you are. Just move your feet up and down. Just walk in place. Just don't walk forward. Just kind of getting going. And while you do this, let me just say this. So as we start talking about exercise and activity, I want you to understand one key concept, and that is that our bodies are designed to be active, to function best, okay? So our whole body, our whole system, mind, body, spirit, functions best when we're active. That's how everything is designed. In fact, everything in your body and your brain moves all the time, right? It's not idle, it doesn't stop, right? Everything moves. So the more we move, the better we will function. And so that's what I want you to start thinking about, all right? So when you sit down, for whatever the reason is, it takes just about 20 minutes to really start destructing your body. It's not very long. So after 20 minutes, you really cannot think very well anymore because you have diminished oxygen supply to your brain, right? Nobody's saying yes or no. You're not sure? Okay. Well, it's okay. We're gonna learn together. You can't think very well. You start getting sleepy. You start yawning. There's so many interesting things that happen to your body when you stop moving, right? So, and also we have started living a life in our society, probably most of you are raised that way, that we behave in certain ways because our environment and our social community prescribes how we act and what we do, and we've simply just accepted that. This is how we do things, right? I mean, think about it. Some of you stopped walking. Why did you stop? Oh, you forgot, because that's exactly what I'm saying. We've been trained when we do certain things, we can't do another thing, right? So for example, when you learn or when you work, you've been told you must sit still so you can concentrate. Isn't that so? Okay, well, we've just been all mistaken. Because we can actually think a lot better when we move and what we do, okay? So doing what I'm doing now is it takes time to actually redesign how we function. All right, so now that we've warmed up just a little bit, we're going to do another little activity, okay? Nice and easy. Let's see if we can do this together. This will be quite interesting. So see if you can follow. We're going to take 4 steps to the right together, okay? Do what I do. Ready? 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4 step. And now clap twice. Now you're going to take your right foot forward, tap with your heel forward, then the left heel forward, then the right heel forward, then the left heel forward. You got it? Are we okay? Did that happen or no? I don't know what's happening. Yes or no? Okay, and then we're going back to the left for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again with the heels. So we're going to right heel, left heel, right heel, left heel. Can we do that? You guys remember? Okay, so let's try again. Here we go. And 4, 3, 2, 1. Clap twice. Good. And heel, heel, heel. And here we go again. And 4, 3, 2, 1. Clap twice. Heel, heel. Good. Heel. We're going to do this again. Here we go. Ready? 4, 3. Good. 2, 1. Clap twice. Clap. No, that was too fast. Clap. Clap. And heel. Because we don't have music. The music's in my head right now. There we go. And 4. Good. 3, 2, 1. And clap. Clap. Heel. 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 One more time. Last time. Here we go. And 4, 3. Good. 2, 1. And clap. Clap. And heel. Heel. Heel, going back, and 4, 3, 2, 1, and clap, clap, and heel, heel, good, heel, fantastic, good job, well done, give yourself a hand, good work, good work. So now, most of you, this is what's happening, very interesting, this is a social experiment, so now people are like, oh, I'm done, I can sit down again. Ah, that's what some of you did. I saw you do it. That's okay. I'm glad you did it. My experiment wouldn't work otherwise. No. So now, for the rest of the time, I'm going to give you a choice, just like Dr. Dysinger said already. Obviously, if you'd like to sit, you can make a free choice, whatever you want to do. But if you choose to not want to sit right now, that's fine. If you choose to stand or move around, just kind of go to the side, all right? So that everybody can see. So whatever you feel comfortable with doing, go ahead and do. Do I have a clicker by any chance? That would be great. Thank you. Right there. Okay, thank you so much. Fantastic. So I want to talk with you. So if you're going to keep standing, just move to the side so people can see, all right? Fantastic. Okay, and by the way, I will not judge you if you do sit, okay? That's totally fine. So I want to talk this morning to you about the global epidemic that we are a part of and that we see as it relates to physical activity and exercise. And then this afternoon, we're going to talk more practically on how we can tackle this particular issue. This morning, you received a wonderful introduction to what lifestyle medicine is, the big picture of it. So now we will tackle, as we go through the day, individual topics that relate to lifestyle medicine and just look at it in a little bit more detail. So my job is to talk about this concept of exercise and physical activity being medicine. So let's see if this works. Choo-choo. There we go. Oh, sorry. Here we go. All right. So some of you are choosing to stand as you're already doing, which is lovely. And those of you that are sitting, so I'm only giving you two options. I do this with my students anywhere I speak. Anytime we're somewhere and we gather, there's two options. Either, number one, you can practice what I call active sitting, or you can do active standing. But you can't just sit or just stand. That's not an option. So I'm giving you two. So I'm going to start with the sitters. If you're still sitting, you need to active sit. Do you know what that is? Some of you do, which is good. Okay, we're going to do this together. First step, you're going to, I'm going to steal this chair, whatever this chair is. So you're going to slide to the edge of your chair for me. So you're barely sitting. I mean, like your glutes just barely touch the edge of the chair, okay? Then you're going to plant your feet down on the ground like so. Good. And you're going to sit nice and straight. So now I want you to roll your shoulders back. Good. So we're not done yet. There's a lot going on with active sitting. So now I would like you with your hand to touch your belly button. And that whole area that's around there has a lot of muscles, and I'd like you to contract all of them. Your face should possibly show. Good. And I'd like you to contract your gluteus maximus. If you don't know what that is, your butt. Okay? I'd like you to contract that also. So now you're contracting your glutes and your butt, and you're going to keep breathing. Don't stop breathing. Some of us this is so much to take in all at once. So now that you're in that position, that's active sitting. So if you choose to sit now or any time from here on out, this is how you should sit. All right? Are we good? If this gets too annoying, you can always stand. That's an option. Okay. So the active standing part is, please make sure you stand properly, okay? So don't start doing this thing where you get in a really weird side position or whatever. Stand on both feet, okay? And kind of like Dr. Santana is doing, and kind of just sway a little bit. You shift your weight a little bit, right? And if you feel the rhythm, you can do that too, whatever works for you, right? But never try to kind of bend sideways or, but move about, don't lock your knees. Okay, so now these are the two options. So again, this is not just for today. When you leave today, you have been transformed. There's either only active sitting or active standing. Everything else has died, all right? Are you good? Good, okay. All right, let's go on. So we're going to talk about three things this morning. We're going to talk about the inactivity epidemic. I want to talk about the consequences and really getting a better feel for what this means for us personally and our society that we live in. And I also want to talk about terminology, because it turns out even within the healthcare community, we actually do not understand this subject as well as we should. So I'd like to make sure we clarify some things. So here comes the moment of truth. Are you ready for the moment of truth? Two people, that's fantastic. Okay, so moment of truth. Here it is. How many hours per day on average are you physically inactive? I want you to count right now. Think about a normal day, whatever your normal day looks like. How many hours a day are you physically inactive? How many hours? Count in your head. What is it on average? Don't forget meal times, driving times. Don't forget screen times, social times, and add it up on average. You got a number? Okay, I want you to turn to your partner and confess. Turn to somebody and tell them. Find somebody, tell them, talk. Tell them, hi, my name is, and this is how much I sit. You got to find somebody. You got to confess over here. No, you don't want to. All right, so I'm curious, with a show of hands, just with a show of hands, and this is honestly, moment of truth, all right? We're going to try to be open and honest and self-reflective here today. So how many of you sit more, are physically inactive more than 8 hours a day? Okay, that's pretty accurate based on where we are in our society. Good. Anybody here less than 8 hours? On average, you do this less than 8 hours, so you're a little bit more active. Okay, so my last question is, how many of you sit less than 3 hours per day on average? Less than 3? Nobody? So keep that number in mind. I'll get back to it later on. Okay. So I want you to think about a few things here today as we look at our state that we're in. 50% of deaths are attributed to unhealthy lifestyle behaviors. We've heard this before. We have the issue of poor quality diet, smoking, stress, physical inactivity. These are some of the common factors that we see. We know that insufficient physical activity is the 4th leading cause of death worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. And here we're talking about as an isolated risk factor, okay? So this is climbing up the charts over the years, and it's become an issue. And what's interesting to me is that not only is it an issue in the Western world, it's becoming an issue everywhere. So this just shows you a little chart with the different causes of death from the WHO. So you can see circled there, number 4 is physical inactivity. Approximately 3.3 million people die globally each year due to a lack of sufficient physical activity. So right now we're focusing just on death. We're not just even talking about living with chronic disease. We're talking about death resulting. Global death per year attributed to physical activity may soon outpace the death attributed to smoking. And as you've heard, it was even said in the earlier presentation, you've all heard now that we keep saying sitting is the new smoking, right? Yeah, you've heard this, I'm sure. And I'll reinforce that again as we go on. This is a little map of the world, and this is from 2015, and you can see the different colors. The darker the colors, the worse the region is doing related to physical activity. So when you look at North America, or at least United States, you can see that that's the color that represents 30 to 40% of inactivity levels of the population, okay? So the darker it gets, the worse it gets. The lighter it is, the better it is, okay? You can see, so this is again a few years ago, and we know that the trends, unfortunately, are going in the wrong direction. As many as 90% of American adults may not meet current physical activity guidelines. And the numbers continue to climb as well, and they're correlated directly to all sorts of chronic disease. Globally, 1 in 4 adults is not active enough on a regular basis. More than 80% of the world's adolescent population is insufficiently physically active, and let me tell you, that scares me. When we look at our children, when we look at our youth, I work at a university community, so I see, young students coming in all the time, 18, 19, 20, 21, and over the last 15 years, I have seen a massive change in how we live, how we behave, and what we do is becoming less and less and less active. Dr. Dysinger was making this comment about, the hotel offering a shuttle from just right across the parking lot. I see this at university. So our campus is not very big, and I have students that legitimately drive from class to class. It takes them longer to get to their car, drive, park again, and get to the building than just walking to the other building. But it's happening all the time. It's not just students, by the way. It's employees are doing the exact same thing. And it's very, very interesting. Or we have these little golf carts, right? And there's people that ask constantly for golf carts to go, I don't know, a quarter of a mile. We have become really just clouded by how lifestyle should look like, by how we have designed the world that we live in now. You probably can hear I have a funny accent. It's because I'm foreign. I was born and raised in Germany. And so in my country, society is a little bit different than in America. I'm not saying better, just different, right? But when I grew up, our communities are built, obviously our communities are a little older than American communities, right? In my city where I grew up, our oldest building was from like 1100 something, so a long time ago. And so when I grew up, we automatically did everything on foot. We had a car, but we did things on foot. When I started school in first grade, it was common that all the neighbors' kids picked each other up and walked to school without parents. We just walked to school. And that continued. We had a supermarket that was within walking distance. We had a pharmacy within walking distance. Everything, the communities were built, so it's reachable. Right? But the walks were anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes, which today, by the way, we think that's way too far away to walk to, okay? And also nobody has time, whatever that means. I'll go off on that tangent later. All right, so a study showed that physical inactivity cost the US healthcare system $330 per person, which approximately costs our country about $102 billion a year. And by the way, that number is from 2000. And I can tell you right now, that number is way higher now. Okay, and this is just activity. We're not even touching poor diet and everything else, okay? So this I really found fascinating. A study done in the Cooper Institute. It was really interesting here in 2009. They were looking at the different factors for mortality. And what came out is that the highest indicator of mortality was low cardiorespiratory fitness. Right? So you can see the chart right here. And by far, that had the biggest impact on mortality. I'm going to tell you something right now that people don't want to hear, but I have to say it anyway. We don't like to think about it this way, but just for the purpose of illustration. If you take a smoker who, for whatever reason, decides to be really healthy otherwise, right? So they eat well, and they exercise, and they sleep well, and they have great social community, but they do smoke. And then you take somebody who eats well, who doesn't smoke, has a great social community, but is completely sedentary and inactive, in terms of longevity, who's going to die sooner? At this point, the inactive people will probably die sooner. So, but here's the thing, okay? I'm going to tell you right now, from my philosophy, in health, we talk a lot about death and longevity. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care that much about longevity. I care much more about quality of life. And I actually think if we start thinking about quality of life as healthcare professionals, that longevity thing is a byproduct. If we start thinking about living life better now, we will change our mindset about actually wanting to do stuff now. Because this is what I notice. When I talk to patients, when I talk to clients, I sit down, I say, well, if you don't stop doing that thing, you're going to die, 10 years earlier. But if they're 35, they don't care about dying 10 years earlier, because that's like 40 years away. We need to start talking about how what we do in our lives impacts us now. Let's not just keep talking about death and longevity. Let's talk about the benefits of lifestyle medicine now, the quality of life. How does that impact our ability to think and live and love and laugh? That makes a difference. Every single person, I believe, on this earth is looking for true happiness in one way or another. And if we can give some solutions by holistic lifestyle medicine, people will start getting excited. And once people get excited, that's a key element to behavior change in the process. Okay? All right, let's continue looking at some things. So we already talked about the sitting situation. On average, U.S. adults sit more than 8 hours per day, and 36% of U.S. adults don't engage in any type of leisure activity. I always like saying, and again, I'm a foreigner, so when I first came to America, I had to adjust to a lot of different things. And one of the things that I noticed, and I always like telling the story, I couldn't believe that in this country, you could almost do everything without ever moving. I mean, we have typical American families in their homes, and when they leave their homes, most of them have an attached garage. Right? So then you just walk through, your laundry room and go to the garage, and you get in your car and you leave the house. So you go to work, and maybe you take a few steps to your cubicle, and then you sit in your cubicle for, 8, 9 hours or whatever, and then you leave, you go back to your car, and you're so exhausted from sitting all day that you might as well sit more because it's tiring. It actually is. We get exhausted mentally in every other way. And by the way, do you guys know Newton's law? Do you know physics? What's it say? I heard somebody say that right. Good. That's a very important law to remember. And the other way around, right? An object at... Aha. So this is exactly how human beings work, by the way. The more you're at rest, the more you want to be at rest. The more you move, you want to move. That's how we can actually rewire how we function, okay? So the more you do this, the more you want to do this. And I can speak from experience, guys. I love moving, and when I sit, after just about 10, 20 minutes, my entire body feels like it's going to explode. Because it's used to moving all the time, so sitting feels foreign to the body. Okay? So just start thinking about it takes time to change that. But in America, you could walk to your car, go to work, and then after work you get in your car, and then what do? You don't want to make dinner because that's too much work. So you go through a drive-through, get your food through a window. Then you need to get your meds. You can go through a drive-through pharmacy. You can go through a drive-through all kinds of things. And then you go back home, and then you get in your garage, and you go back home. And then you're so exhausted from that, you go sit back on the couch. And by the way, what I'm telling you is true for the majority of Americans. Okay? So we have got a serious social problem. We have a problem of environmental design. We have a problem of how we think and how we view things. And that's going to take a lot more than telling our patients you need to eat vegetables. You need to hear this, because if you're going to work with patients and clients, you have got to start understanding that the behavior change process is complicated, and it goes beyond just the individual. It goes to the community that they live in. It goes to the community they work in. All of this makes a big difference on whether or not they'll be successful in making long-term sustainable changes. All right? I do an experiment in my classes, not all the time, but sometimes, especially with my health psychology class, whenever I teach that. And usually we have 1 week of regular class, and then by the second week, once they know me a little bit, I clean out the classroom completely before class. So I get rid of all the tables, all the chairs, and it's just this open blank room. And so class begins and the door opens, and I remember this one time, it made me laugh. So I'm in the class, I'm waiting for the students to come in. The door opens in the back. First student kind of looks in, opens the door and wants to walk in, and she stops. And she looks around and she sees me. So obviously she knows she's in the right room. And she looks and she runs back out. I'm thinking, that was weird. Okay, so then that happened repeatedly with students looking in and nobody was coming into class. And I'm thinking, okay, so I'll go out in the hallway, and they're all standing in the hallway. And I said, what are you doing? Well, we are waiting to have class start. I said, well, then why aren't you coming in the room? Well, there's no tables and chairs in there, so we figured we're going to a different classroom. No, please come in. Okay, so they start coming in, but I purposely didn't give them any instructions. It's actually really funny. You should try this out sometimes in different social contexts. And so they come in, and I kid you not, all 30 students huddle all by the door. Nobody wants to step in the room. So they're all standing there in the back, and I'm standing in the front, and I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me, and it's completely awkward socially. Which I have no problem with. And so they all stand for a while, and then finally somebody raises their hand. I said, yes. And they said, what are we supposed to do? I said, I don't know. What do you want to do? They didn't know. They had no idea, because all their lives they've been prompted that when you go into a learning environment, you must sit on your buttocks on a chair, and that's it. And everybody felt lost, and they're adults. And I'll tell you, you probably do the exact same thing if you're in a certain environment. If we'd done this here today, you came in here and there's no chairs and tables, all of you would be huddling somewhere back there. And then at some point, we're going to say, come closer, and you feel super uncomfortable. So I'm making a point that this issue of lifestyle medicine, specifically related to physical activity and exercise, is really quite complicated. And we need to start thinking about how all these factors play into it. And this afternoon, I'll talk a little bit more specifically about that. So I love this little image. So Dr. David Agus, this was published a few years ago when this whole sitting is the new smoking came out. But in one of the studies, it was determined that if you sit more than 5 hours per day, it is equivalent of smoking more than a pack of cigarettes per day. I don't know if you knew that. Yes, please do. I'll get out of your way so you can take a picture. So I don't know if this is clear to you, because I can tell you right now that most of you probably know, whatever your background is, whatever you're doing, but you're interested in health. So I'm just going to take a wild guess that most of you are not smokers in here. And most of you know that smoking is bad. And most of you would tell your patients smoking is bad. But socially, by the way, it's become acceptable to talk about smoking being bad. Right? You have some friends, I have some friends that smoke, and sometimes we have a friendly chat, and we sit down and, I say, yo, smoking's not good for you. Yeah, I know, but, so we chat about it, it's okay. They don't feel overly offended because society has decided smoking is bad. We can't do that with the subject I'm talking about. I can't go up to my friend and say, hey, you've been awfully lazy, you sit a lot. That'd be weird. And people would be offended. That's another problem. If we're going to start using lifestyle medicine and make it work socially, we have got to change how we embrace these subjects socially and how we think about it and how we talk about it and that we talk about it. And this is why I said when I started today, first we have to start with us, because if we don't do this, we can't talk to our patients about it. No chance. You're going to be a hypocrite. Sorry. But we're going to have to start doing this stuff in order to talk about it, in order to make them do it as well. If they come to your office and they see the exact normal traditional office setup and then you talk to them about changing their environment, what are they going to think? They're a hypocrite, right? So we need to start thinking about changing how we display what we do as it relates to specifically physical activity and creating environments that invite movement, right? And again, I'll talk about it this afternoon to give you ideas about that. So the consequences of living an inactive lifestyle are massive, and I can't go over all of them, so I'm going to highlight a few. I don't think we fully get what the actual consequences are. Consequences of being physically inactive, first of all, of course, impact your heart and your lungs. Okay, that's a big deal. Your heart weakens, your lungs weaken, your muscles weaken, you will experience loss of bone density. And by the way, I hope most of you know you don't have to drink cow milk to have strong bones, right? All right, so one of the key things about working with individuals through the aging process or other chronic diseases is that cardiovascular training and muscular strength training can have a huge impact on bone density. I actually worked with a couple of patients that were diagnosed with osteoporosis, and we were able to start reversing their osteoporosis by being on a good dietary plan and exercise plan, okay? You will experience stiffening of joints. Most of you know this already, right? You get stiff much quicker as you age, and if you don't focus on flexibility fitness, you will experience that, and that can result in a very crippling disease many Americans experience. What am I talking about? Arthritis, right? Very painful, crippling disease, and we know with being physically active, you can delay the onset of arthritis and minimize the symptoms or even reverse some of the symptoms. It decreases mental and emotional well-being. You've been hearing all over the news, it's been a big thing over the last few years, how mental health is really getting worse in this country. No? Have you not heard this? In the news, we talk about it everywhere. We're starting new initiatives with mental wellness. I would like to be critical of our own community. If we don't start working together in our community, we will not tackle the problems, because we cannot treat mental wellness isolated with mental wellness, and we can't treat physical wellness independently from mental wellness. We have to start working together. They are closely related. And we see that our physical inactivity epidemic is going up, our mental wellness epidemic is going up, everything is correlated. And we have got to start thinking about these issues that way and not isolatedly. On my campus, it's my responsibility to start networking with the whole campus to, by the way, my job description is one sentence. When I got hired, I got one sentence. It is your job to make Andrews University the healthiest university in the world. That's my job description. It's pretty massive, one sentence. And so what I've started to do is work with the other healthcare professionals on campus on this precise issue, to work together so that we can start embracing the issues we have together and start making changes together. And we are seeing changes, one life at a time, one day at a time. And with that, we can start transforming culture and we can start transforming institutions. So you will also see consequences related, obviously, to overweight and obesity, which is a huge issue in our country. By the way, we just got a new data set, just a couple of months ago, was released nationally on the obesity level in our country, and I was absolutely devastated because I had hoped and prayed when the new data set comes out that we will either see stagnant numbers or that it will have started going down because of all the things we're trying to do. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Unfortunately, our obesity data shows that, again, overweight and obesity levels steadily are increasing on all age groups in this country. ended up being able to do my exercise in my hotel room, right? And by the way, do you need money to exercise? No. Do you need equipment? No. Nope. What do you need? Your body. And I always tell people, so wherever you go, your body goes, so there's no excuse to not exercise. Bottom line, okay? So this is just to understand terminology. We've got physical activity, we've got exercise, and we've got physical fitness, and you need to understand all of it, all right? So then quickly finishing up the overall recommendations, and these are very general from our government about how much people should move. So people should know this. You should communicate this to each other and your patients. Adults should avoid inactivity. That should be a statement. You should avoid inactivity. All right. Number 2, 150 minutes a week of moderate to 75 minutes or 75 minutes per week of vigorous activity. What's vigorous anyway? What's vigorous? High intensity. How do you know if you're doing that? Your heart rate goes up. What's another indicator? Sweat, right? That's a key one, right? So that's how you know you're getting into the vigorous level. Additional health benefits come the more you do. Okay? And strength, the general recommendation is 2 non-consecutive days. But this is so general, I'm going to tell you right now, whenever I've talked to my patients about this, they all look at me and say, okay, I still have no idea what I'm supposed to do now. So this is where we have to get more specific, okay? So there's what I call, this is the physical fitness pyramid. I really like it. It's designed by Charles Corbin and Guy Lemazuri, and this is in one of the textbooks that we actually use for our students. It's a great resource to start illustrating how you can be more specific about exercise. And you can Google this as well. You can Google the fitness pyramid, and you can find different versions of it as well. So the power of motion is huge. So looking at the positive side. So once you start moving and are physically active and exercise, you will experience serious power. You'll experience how your heart and lungs start improving. You will have stronger muscles. You have more energy. That's a big thing. You notice it right away, the energy level. People ask me all the time, no matter where I go, so how much coffee do you drink? I said, I don't drink any coffee. Wait, what did you do? I mean, are you on something? Nope. I move a lot, and so I have a lot of energy, okay? So that's a great way to do it. Weight control is a big deal. Higher endurance, higher stamina. That's a huge problem in the workforce, by the way. I work with a lot of employees, and they can concentrate for about 5.5 minutes. And then I lost them somewhere in the process. You're more fit. You have less injuries. That's a big deal. The more fit, the less injury, okay? Better stress management. Big deal. We have a lot of issues with stress management. Better sleep quality. Emotionally more stable. Toned muscles. Quicker healing. I could go on. I could talk about this for 2 hours. But here's some specifics that you want to know for the medical practice. We know that physical activity on a regular basis combined with structured exercise lowers risk of stroke by 27%. It reduces the incidence of heart disease and high blood pressure by approximately 40%. It reduces the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease by approximately 40%. And remember, I'm telling you only with this one factor. If you start adding a healthy diet and all these other things, these numbers just go up, okay? Reduces mortality and risk recurrent breast cancer by approximately 50%. It lowers the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 58%. That's huge. Just like Dr. Dysinger said, why wouldn't we do this? This is free. And this does a lot less damage to your body than drugs. In fact, it's the opposite, right? Lowers risk of colon cancer by over 60%. Active individuals in their 80s have a lower risk of death than inactive individuals in their 60s. Okay, that's a big deal. So, as I'm closing, we are designed to move. You have to start changing and rewiring your brain. We are designed to move. It's okay. You can study and move. I wrote my dissertation on a little standing rolling thing in my house, and my friend actually videotaped me secretly one time, which was super embarrassing. I made them delete it. But I was typing, and I got into the habit, because once you get in the habit of standing and working, you don't just stand. You actually start moving. And I was writing my chapter, and I was doing these dance steps in front of my desk, and I was typing. And it's funny because I didn't even notice anymore. It wasn't intentional. It just became part of what I do, okay? So the more we ask of our bodies, the stronger and more fit they become. That's good news, which means there's hope for everybody. This is true no matter what your past is. So if you decide today you start this will be true for you. What will also be true is that you will be more efficient and effective in all that you do in your life, your work, your family, your relationships. Everything will get better. Physical activity is medicine. We need to understand that. It can save lives, it can change lives, it can transform lives on every level, mind, body, and spirit. The challenge is, we know that we have a problem. We also know, theoretically, what the solution is, but this is our problem. Moving evidence and theory into practice. That's our problem. And that's where we are now. We've got to find pathways of how to actually transitioning into how to apply it in an effective way. So knowledge doesn't change anything, by the way. Everything I told you today, if you walk away and you know all that stuff and you can recite it and put it on a test and click boxes, that's wonderful. But if you don't start doing it, it does nothing. So that's what we have to start internalizing. So what are we going to do about it as a healthcare community? What are we going to do about it as individuals? And the question I want to leave you with is, what are you going to do about it? Because the responsibility now lies with you as I leave you today. So I look forward to seeing you this afternoon, and I'll be happy to chat with questions in between. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. That was very active. Am I right? She kept us on our toes. Now our next speaker, thank you, Dr. Grimald. Next speaker is a local speaker, Dr. Jerry Tamayo. Dr. Jerry Tamayo is originally from the Philippines. He is a very good friend of mine, international speaker. He's a former chair for the Department of Medical and Health Sciences, Health Science Management, and a professor of biology at South Texas College. He has done many lectures on lifestyle medicine all over the world. And I'm going to invite him to come to the platform as he discuss lifestyle therapeutic and cardiovascular disease. Dr. Tamayo, you're up. Is in the back here. All righty.
Okay, so I have barely about 45 minutes to present about 60 slides. Are you ready? All right, so I'll go ahead and make it very fast. I know that you are very smart, so you should be able to get it. All right, so my topic is lifestyle therapeutics for cardiovascular disease. Let me have the... I just would like you to note here that I'm speaking as a classroom professor. So here I'm not speaking as a medical professional, but since my training is basically on college teaching and in the graduate school as well, I've been teaching for the past 30 years. So my style would be to interact with you. So I would like you to interact with me, ask questions as we move on. So these are my lecture objectives to emphasize major concepts of reversing cardiovascular disease through diet and lifestyle modification. And I will be emphasizing here on whole plant foods and fitness exercise, as Dr. Gomalt mentioned, that exercise is itself medicine. And I will be highlighting some, just a few, actually. There are just a lot of scientific evidences that would tell us that cardiovascular disease is actually very reversible. And I would like you to be inspired after the talk. I would like you to be inspired to to lead and live a top-notch healthy lifestyle, and to take health as your solemn responsibility in life. At least you yourself will start the ball rolling, and I would like to see that you are going to share this to others and make probably some programs that would be important for the community. So I just would like to give a very short definition on cardiovascular disease, or this is more known as CVD. It encompasses several conditions interrupting the functions of the heart, the blood vessels, and the circulatory system as a whole. That's why if you are going to dissect the word cardiovascular, this would basically entail the heart, the blood vessels, and the whole body in general. So this includes atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, and on. So this is the list of all this cardiovascular disease. So it's actually a group of diseases. So I just found out a number of facts about cardiovascular disease here. Is the leading killer, where we have 1 out of 4 deaths here in the US. And in terms of thousands of deaths, we have 365,000 approximately deaths that have occurred in the US, and about 17.3 million deaths worldwide. So this is a very enormous number. And in terms of the costs, in terms of the dollars that we spend about $250 billion for healthcare, medications, and the loss of productivity. So this are just very enormous number to imagine. And I found out also in 2013, about 610,000 people die of heart disease alone here in the United States. And every year, about 735,000 Americans have a heart attack. Now here in the Valley, I would like to highlight here, how do I use the pointer? Oh, okay. All right, so this is Texas. All right, so this is the US. And so in 1985, there was no data recorded on obesity. Now, 10 years after, in 1995, you could see here, this is 1995, and you could see here the dark color spot here in Texas. So we are about 15 to 19% obese. So it has gone up, no data 10 years before this, but we could see here that we have a data recorded, and it is very shocking for many of us. But as we progress here, you will see that we are here. This one about 25 to 29% in our general population in 2005 as obese. Now, why I do mention about obesity, because this is one of the risk factors in development of cardiovascular disease. Okay, and then you will see here, this is the latest one that is on the journals, that we are here about more or less 30% of us, or practically about 1/3 in our population here in Texas alone, and there are other states also wherein they have very grave problem with obesity. Now this is the one that I got before I traveled to the Philippines when I addressed the vegan nutrition seminar in the Philippines, where there were more than 600 to 2,000 attendees of vegan nutrition coming from different countries of the world among our nutritional biochemistry scientists. So here, we made it. Are we proud of it? Here in McAllen, Edinburgh, this is our rate, about 38.8% in terms of obesity. So we made it to the top, that we are the first in the nation in terms of obesity. And we could see them every day. These are, I asked permission to use this picture from my students, and they agreed. And so we could see young people being obese themselves. All right, so this is just a picture that I included in my, just for you to see where are the blood vessels that are usually affected in terms of cardiovascular disease. So basically, we are looking at the heart by itself and also the coronary arteries that you find to supply the blood that is needed by just like any other organs of the body. Okay, so this one also shows you what are the leading causes of early death. And so you would see here that the dietary risks would be the first one, and then you will see here tobacco smoking, high blood pressure, overweight, and so on. Okay? So these are the major causes of death here in the US. And heart disease also is the major cause of the early death. Heart disease is way back, way here to the top among all those causes of early deaths. Okay, and then we could see here, you have seen the heart, and so you are familiar with the coronary arteries here. You could see plaques that are forming, and thus this would weaken the heart. If there would be plaque formation in the coronary arteries, especially of the left coronary artery, you know that this would weaken the heart muscles, and if this will be totally blocked, we all know that this would cause an infarct or tissue death in the heart. So we know that when cholesterol is oxidized, it would form a pus, and then the plaque may enlarge, and it narrows down the coronary arteries. Okay, now what are the foods that may cause plaque formation? So I have here meat, dairy, poultry, and poultry products, and the processed foods that you find in groceries. You know, in grocery stores, we just have a lot of processed foods. If we go to the right side of the grocery, we find probably just a few amount of fresh foods. But generally in the groceries, you find a lot of processed foods there, and many of us are consuming on a daily basis. So these are some of the major risk factors in developing cardiovascular disease, including diabetes mellitus, either type 1 or type 2, dyslipidemia, elevated blood pressure, or we all know this as hypertension, and obesity or overweight, which I mentioned, highlighted in the first few, that obesity is one of the major causes, risk factors of cardiovascular disease. Physical inactivity, as highlighted by the previous speaker, and I will be focusing more on diet. So here we have high-fat diet, sodium, refined sugars, and other things that we find primarily in processed foods and in the foods that we ourselves prepare at home, the foods that we buy, and also from the fast foods. You know, it's fast to get food from there, but our life's longevity would be compromised. One important good news about cardiovascular disease, although these are killing a lot of our loved ones in the general population, severe risk factors are preventable. This is a very important good news. And they are modifiable. They are also reversible with early intervention. So while you have symptoms, while your loved ones may have the early symptoms, we know that this could be reversed. The progression of a particular disease could be reversed. Now, I found out also here that there are, in the diet, these risk factors would include diets high in refined grains, red and processed meats, refined sugar, sodium, and salt. And of course, we find all this in many of our food preparations, again, in processed foods. If you have a diet low in fruits and vegetables, so you are increasing your risk of developing cardiovascular disease. Low in fruits and vegetables, low in whole grains and breads, low in nuts and seeds, low in dietary fibers, legumes and nuts, and low in essential fatty acids, such as those that we normally see in the advertisement, omega-3 and omega-6. So these are polyunsaturated fatty acids. Now, I would like us to focus more on our how we are able to reverse cardiovascular disease using whole plant foods. So what are the benefits of using whole plant foods in modifying, in preventing, or in reversing cardiovascular disease? This would help us in improving our immunity against heart attacks. This could help us avoid strokes, hypertension, obesity, osteoporosis, adult onset diabetes, and senility. Now, the whole plant foods that we would like to focus would be primarily on the whole grains, the vegetables, and the fruits. Now, I would like us to focus more on the word whole, not the processed ones. If we find vegetables and fruits in the grocery, but they are in cans, we are just going to discard them, basically, because these are not whole foods. They are processed foods as well. Now, our original food, this was prescribed in the ancient times that we have to include in our daily diet grains, vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Very simple to memorize, right? We get them from the grocery store as whole foods, not processed foods. So this is according to the original diet that was prescribed to man even in the ancient times. Now, in the recent statement by the American Heart Association, it says that a vegan diet reduces inflammation linked to heart disease. Now, you have seen here in the formation or development of cardiovascular disease. You have seen the coronary arteries forming a plaque. And basically, this starts with inflammation of the arterial walls. Now, this is a scientific study that I found, wherein the researchers used some 100 participants with heart disease who are either eating vegan diet or they have been eating the recommended diet by the American Heart Association for about 8 weeks, and they tracked their inflammation. Okay, and so they were supervised, they were monitored, and thus they were given different types of food. Now, those who followed the vegan diet significantly reduced their inflammation markers, while those who followed the AHA diet did not. So here, they have noticed that the vegan diet primarily is an important factor in reducing inflammation, arterial inflammation. And it also reduces, of course, the development of cardiovascular disease. Now, there is also another study by the New York University School of Medicine, and they studied several groups of individuals with vegan diet and those with the AHA recommended diet. So in vegan diet, of course, you take away all forms of flesh foods. So it will be more of the fruits, the vegetables, grains, and nuts, as we mentioned. But for the American Heart Association recommended diet, they have here so much amount of fruits and vegetables, nuts, and grains. But they have, they permit to a limited extent lean meat, eggs, low-fat, and other flesh foods at a very limited amount. And they found out that there is a 20% drop in the concentrations of high sensitivity C-reactive protein, or the HSCRP. You know, HSCRP is an important marker that tells us that there is a chronic inflammation, especially in the arteries. So here they found out that there is a 20% drop of the amount of C-reactive protein in the blood. For those who have the AHA diet, there is just more or less 1% drop in the concentrations of HSCRP. And so it tells you that there is a significant difference between those who lead vegan diet with those who do not have a vegan diet. Although we say that in the transition process, if we are moving on towards vegan nutrition, it is important that people, our participants, should consider having the transition in a gradual way. Okay, there is another study that I found here by the Icahn School of Medicine. And I have here, this involved 15,000 participants with no known heart problems, and they compare this to 5 dietary patterns. So first, you can see here, those groups with convenience food, that they allow red meats, pastas, fried potatoes, and fast foods that could be eaten by this group. And then we have the plant-based, those who eat primarily of the dark green leafy vegetables, fruits, so they are vegan, in other words. And then those other groups allow sweets. They eat fruits and vegetables, but they primarily eat those sweetened stuff. And then there is another group that ate the southern type of food with a lot of fried foods, processed meats, and sugar-sweetened beverages. And those who drink to a little extent alcohol and so much amount of salads. So what's the result of this study? So it shows here that among those who ate the plant-based diet, those who have primarily vegan nutrition, they found out that they have about 42% of this decreased risk for heart disease. And so this is a very significant one as compared to others where they have zero reduction. So it is a very significant study. Now, I also found here the Harvard School Public Health Study, and they studied approximately 210,000 participants, and they were classified into two categories. So you have the strict plant-based diet, and those that ate some fruits, vegetables, but they allowed having them eat the sugary beverages, refined grains, sweets, and certain potatoes. And the result is very stunning as well. They found out that those who ate the plant-based diet had about 25% less likely to develop heart disease over the next 20 years than those who have the least healthy. So the study is also very supportive of plant-based foods. This one also studied about 44,561 participants between 1990 to 2009. So it's almost about a 20-year study. And they looked into the lifestyle of these participants. They also looked into their diet and exercise, and there are other factors that may have affected their health structure, including their smoking, drinking alcohol, and other lifestyle factors. And they found out here that they have recorded about 1,666 people with heart disease and 169 deaths from heart disease from among all participants. And very stunningly, they found out that 32% of those who had a vegetarian diet had lower risk of developing heart disease than those who ate, to a certain degree, fish and meat. Now, this has been an important study as well among the Seventh-day Adventists here, that there have been some studies that they started even from the 1960s, and these studies were sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, the Department of Agriculture, and the World Cancer Research Fund. And they did several of these landmark studies among the Seventh-day Adventists. Okay, and this shows that those Adventist men lived about 6.2 years longer than the non-Adventist men who were involved in the study. And among women, they have 3.7-year advantage over their counterparts. And in terms of cancers, in all different forms of cancers, those Adventist men had about 60% lower rate for developing different forms of cancer. And among women, 76% lower for Adventist men, Adventist women. In terms of coronary artery disease, about 66% among men develop coronary arteries lower, much lower by 66%. And for Adventist women, about 98%, much lower than the general population in terms of the development of coronary artery disease. And these are some things that they found out in this study, that among the 70 Adventists who were part of the study, they found out that they have these health behaviors. They don't smoke, they eat plant-based diet, they eat a lot of nuts, they have regular exercise, they maintain normal body weight, they eat legumes, Okay, and then they eat a lot of nuts, as we mentioned. They drink 5 or more glasses of water per day. And so this would tell us here that generally our lifestyle would be very important in preventing any of these lifestyle diseases. Now, I would like us to go through just very quickly on several of those foods that I found out that are very important in preventing, in modifying, and in reversing coronary artery disease, like the pulses. They lower blood pressure and so on. These are all the benefits of taking pulses. What are pulses anyway? This would be primarily made of what? Lentils? Beans? So those who eat pulses, not probably on a daily basis, but we could see them eat at least twice a week, they have all these benefits. And then the blueberries and other berries, they are rich in flavonoids and they score out the fatty plaques. Thus, this would help in reversing the fatty plaque buildup on the arterial walls. Okay, so these are blueberries. Garlic. How many of you take fresh garlic? Every day? All right, so this would inhibit coronary artery calcification, and thus it reduces formation of fatty plaques on the arterial walls. Grapes, they are also rich in flavonoids, quercetin, and resveratrol, and they are very important in lowering the risk of developing blood clots. Apples, they are rich in this in pectins and quercetin, and these are very important in lowering cholesterol level, and it also helps in preventing, in modifying, and reversing the development of coronary artery disease. Spinach. We found out that the spinach has a lot of lutein, not only calcium. Okay, it has potassium and folic acid as well. That would be important in lowering your blood pressure to normal and in preventing heart disease in general, because it clears up your cholesterol buildup. And then we have olive oil. They found out that to a certain extent, olive oils which contain monounsaturated fatty acids help in preventing fatty plaque buildup. Tomatoes. We know that tomatoes have lycopene, and this lowers the risk of atherosclerosis by 50%. And then several of these nuts, walnuts, almonds, they have also health benefits and cardiovascular benefits. They lower LDL cholesterol, they increase HDL cholesterol, they stabilize arterial walls, and they prevent or reverse cardiovascular disease. Now, you find in nuts L-arginine, so as the endothelial linings in the arteries would produce nitric oxide. And we know that nitric oxide keeps the blood vessel open. Now, after the food that I highlighted, I would like us to go through very quickly on exercise, and Dr. Gummelt will be we look forward to more of this, but I just would like to highlight a number of things that I found about exercise. So this generally enhances circulation, it increases your endorphin levels, and it maintains your overall health. Now, what is recommended here is for us to exercise about 5 to 6 times weekly for about 30 minutes to 1 hour every time that we exercise. Now, the American Heart Association says that prescribed and supervised resistance training in persons with or without cardiovascular disease has enhanced muscular strength, endurance, functional capacity, and independence, and the quality of life, and thus this would reduce disability and it modifies our risk for developing cardiovascular disease. Now, another statement says that regular physical activity using large muscle groups such as walking, running, or swimming, or even dancing would produce cardiovascular adaptations that would increase your muscular strength, your endurance, and of course, this is important in preventing cardiovascular disease as well and in reducing the risk of developing chronic diseases. Sorry. Okay, in one other study that I found that those that are physically active had 50% survival from cardiovascular disease than those that compared to those individuals with sedentary lifestyle. And there are just a lot of evidences that withdrawal from physical activity would also increase our risk for developing cardiovascular disease. Now, another study here shows that those who have exercise training among 4,700 subjects demonstrated that there is an increase in HDL cholesterol by about 4.6%, reduction in triglyceride levels, and also in the LDL level concentrations by 3.7 and 5.0% respectively. Now, another study points that those who exercise regularly would have about a reduction of their systolic and diastolic blood pressure by this amount, about 7.4 and 5.8% for those hypertensive patients who were studied. But for those who have normotensive subjects, they have also a reduction by about 2.6 and 1.8 mmHg in their systolic and diastolic blood pressures, respectively. Now, in closing, I would like to stress out here that CVD kills. Thus, we have to do something before it's too late. If it is not for you, it should be at least for your loved ones and for the community. Thank you so much.
All right. We thank Dr. Tamayo. He said coronary artery disease kills, but he also said that coronary artery disease is preventable, modifiable, and reversible. So there is hope. That is why you're here, because we want to bring hope to the valley so we can transform this valley into a blue zone. Our next speaker, Dr. Santana, he is from the valley, but he works in Dallas. Dr. Santana is a board-certified internal medicine doctor. He works as a hospitalist in Dallas-Fort Worth. He's the founder of Genesis Revolution Lifestyle Medicine Practice in Dallas. He has significant experience on using lifestyle to reverse many diseases. Help me welcome Dr. Jared Santana. Okay, oops. All righty, so he's setting it up. All right. Now, I want to let you know that we're running behind, but we have meals. We'll have some meals here, and we have meals at the concession stand. And because we're discussing lifestyle medicine and plant-based meals, you're going to be exposed to delicious plant-based meals throughout the entire convention center today. So the concession stand, we have hummus and chips. We have salad with walnut balls. We had vegetarian soup, mock slider, delicious. I came this week and did a test. So you have to stay, eat with us here, eat with us there. Dr. Sandana, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jared Santana, and I help people with the use of lifestyle to get healthier and come off their medications. I'm also a hospitalist on the side. This is my disclosure. And back when I was young and naive, this is the first thing I learned in medical school. Today, I'm going to show you how lifestyle medicine can make an impact in your patient's life, and if you have high blood pressure, in your life as well. We're going to implement it in our practice. I'm going to start off by telling you about a guy named Mike. I'm going to go over a few statistics to show you the magnitude of hypertension. And then, this is the meat and potatoes of it. I'm going to show you what you can do about it. After that, I want to empower you. If you are a healthcare provider, I want to show you what you can do. If you are a patient, I want to show you what you can do. And then to close, I'm going to give you an example of the living proof behind the power of lifestyle. Meet Mike. Mike is a Texas cattle rancher. Mike has hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and borderline diabetes. Now, Mike's wife is very, very concerned about him because Mike's not taking care of himself the way he should. You see, Mike doesn't take his medications the way he should, and Mike eats just about anything he can get his hands on. Providers, you know who this guy is. Everybody. She's concerned about him. I'm a hospital physician. I'm on call one night, and I get the call from the ER physician that Mike is being admitted to the neuro ICU. He's already intubated by the time I see him. Neurosurgery becomes involved, and even after intervention, 5 days later, Mike is no longer with us. You see a number up there on the screen. That's the number of deaths worldwide from hypertension. It's a staggering number. Now, this number contributes to deaths from aneurysm, myocardial infarct, stroke, congestive heart failure, and renal disease, which are all tied into hypertension. To put it to you in a different way, if you were to add up all the deaths from all the natural disasters in our world, hypertension kills 100 times more people than all the natural disasters put together. This is just to give you the staggering figures of that number. Prevalence of hypertension. Look at the screen and you can see the lighter states represent less hypertension. The darker you get, more hypertension. You see where Texas is? We're headed that way. We're almost in the highest bracket as far as hypertension goes. Now, if you live long enough, chances are you will have hypertension. It has been assumed by doctors, by patients alike, that it's just part of getting old. It's kind of like getting up to pee 12 times in the middle of the night. That's what the assumption is. But we're going to show you that it does not have to be that way. About 15 years ago, the JNC7 came up with the latest hypertensive guidelines of that time. And so at the end of last year, the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology revised it. So what is it telling you? If you have blood pressure 120/80, guess what? You have high blood pressure under the new guidelines. It's pretty impressive. That means if you're in the yellow zone, this is your yellow light. Now, many times patients want to know what will happen if I don't get my blood pressure under control. And this is what we tell patients. It's very simple. And most of you here are medical professionals, and you know very well what it all means. For those of you who are medical providers who have been in practice longer than I have, you probably had an easier time convincing patients to take their medicine. You see, with the evolution of the Google medical degree, patients can look up stuff and decide, you know what? I don't want to take my medication. You get your patient who says, you know what, doc? I have nausea, I have vomiting, and I read that lisinopril is causing that. And it doesn't matter that you just came back from Taco Palenque and you had 12 burritos. Drugs.com told you, and that's what I'm going to go by. It's a big challenge. Now, there are two side effects that aren't on that slide under beta blockers. Dizziness, which is very common, and sexual dysfunction. I mean, try to convince people who already have problems with this to take their medications when the side effects are pointing to stuff like that. Compliance is dismal. The beta blockers have the worst. I think it says 28.4. And then when you go to the angiotensin receptor blockers, they have the best, but that's still 1/3 of your patients that aren't taking their medicine the way they're supposed to. So what can I do about it? This is where we're going to be spending most of our time this morning. There are certain regions in the world where patients or where people live healthier lives than we do. If you want more information, you can go to look up the blue zones, for example. You'll probably be hearing some about that while you're here. This is a group of people in rural Kenya. And I have two studies up there. So Kenyans in the rural Africa, they eat diets composed mainly of fruit, beans, leafy greens, vegetables, things like that. Very, very little meat, if any. And what we saw is that the blood pressure in Kenyans up to the age of 40 is about the same blood pressure in Americans up to the age of 40. Once you hit 40, Americans, as you age, so does your blood pressure. The Kenyans have an average of 110/70 by age 60. Another study. This was an observational study, 1,800 Kenyans in a rural hospital in Africa. Do you know how many patients had high blood pressure? 0. Do you know how many had atherosclerosis? 0. And what the researchers found is that it is almost entirely based on their lifestyle. According to the Global Burden of Disease study, there are two prominent dietary factors that cause death in the world. The first one is not eating enough fruits, and the second one is the ridiculous amount of salt that we consume. So much salt that about 4 million deaths are attributed to salt intake per year in this world. Now, how many of you know someone who, when they get their plate of food, they start adding salt without even tasting it? Everybody knows somebody. You know, human civilization thrived for millennia without the use of salt shakers. This is kind of a more modern, a more recent type of problem. All right, the American Heart Association recommends how much salt per day? Less than 1,500 milligrams per day. And what does the American consume? About 3,500 on average. A lot of people consuming way more than that. So salt, big problem. All right. If we were to tell our patients, cut back on just 1/2 teaspoon of salt a day, it would reduce death by stroke by 22% and would reduce death by fatal myocardial infarct by 16%. Okay? That's more lives than with successful medical therapy. It's pretty outstanding. All right. How many medical students do we have here? All right. More specifically, how many of you are under the age of 25? Let's see your hands. All right. Statistically, if you live in the US, if you are under 25, you're a kid, adolescent, college kid, you get most of your salt from pizza. All right. If you are aged 25 to 50, you get most of your salt from chicken. And if you're above 50, you get most of your salt from bread. All right. Now, we're going to take a test. Everybody take out your number 2 pencils. Okay, not really. But I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to name 4 foods. And of these 4 foods, I want you to tell me which one has the highest salt intake. Number 1, a serving of ground beef. Number 2, organic baked chicken breast. Number 3, a large McDonald's fries. And number 4, a serving of salted pretzels. Any brave people? Fries. Pretzels. Pretzels. All right. Here is the answer, and thank you all for participating. The American meat industry has realized that if they can inject cheap salt into meat, what happens? It increases weight and increases profit. Okay, so the right answer is the baked chicken breast. So that's pretty amazing. Those of you who are medical students, I have my physiology professor. He's somewhere around here. He'd be very proud of me. You remember that class on osmolarity and diffusion? What always follows salt? Water. So if you can put the salt in the meat, they gain water weight, and you can sell more for less. Pretty impressive. So the main problem we have is that we get 3/4 of our sodium from processed foods. And if you are an American, it is very, very difficult to get away from processed food. A note on taste buds. Many times we tell patients, come off salt. Ideally, they would be adding no salt to their food. Ideally, all of us, we don't need to be adding salt to our food. But you know what? Salt makes food taste good. So a very common question we get is, I can't eat this, it doesn't taste like anything. Well, guess what? There's good news. It takes about 3 weeks for your taste buds to fully adjust. And I'm not talking just about salt. If you're trying to have someone do a lifestyle change and get them to eat something they're not used to eating, tell them, just be patient. your taste buds will change. With a show of hands, how many like to exercise? How many don't like to exercise? All right, at least you're honest. I appreciate that. All right. Regular exercise can drop your blood pressure by anywhere between 4 to 15 points. It works better if you are younger. Okay? I gotta give you the truth. If you think you're too old to exercise, think of it this way. You will never be younger than you are today. So get moving. And I won't go into too much detail because Dr. Gumelt spent a good time and she had great information for us. All right. But I will say this. For those of you who do not like to exercise, or if you have patients that have a hard time, either due to maybe arthritis or obesity, here's a little tip that you can do. And this is pretty easy for most people to do. Have your patient drive around the block where they live and map out a mile radius, okay? And then you're gonna ask them over the next 2 weeks to just walk it 3 times in a 2-week period, whenever they want. After those 2 weeks are over, you're gonna have them walk it 3 times a week, and you can just increase from there. You do this, you can have a patient running a 26-mile marathon in 9 months or less, just by incrementing 1/8 of a mile every time. And once you get them jogging, some patients can't jog. You know, some patients have knee issues. You know, if you have an ejection fraction of 10%, you know, those are all things that may limit this type of activity. But just basic walking, I think most of us and most of your patients can do basic walking. Rest. Guess what? Lack of sleep increases your blood pressure. For those of you who are in the medical profession, when you have patients who have sleep apnea, what do almost all of them have as well as a comorbidity? Hypertension. Okay? The two are associated. Stress management. Big problem. A lot of our patients are stressed out. So what does stress do? Stress activates the sympathetic nervous system. We produce cortisol. We produce norepinephrine. And what does that do to our blood pressure? Shoots it up. So what can you do for stress? Well, people have different ways of dealing with it. You know, go for a walk. Get an aquarium. Studies have shown that looking at tropical fish helps. Spend some time in nature. Get a puppy, but only if you like dogs, because if you don't like dogs, it's going to stress you out even more. And you know what else? Faith. Whether or not you believe in it, guess what? Your patients do. And you know what else? Research backs it up. That's right. Neuroscientists who are mostly agnostic, meaning they don't have any faith in God or in things like that, they agree that our brains are wired for spirituality. Okay? So the bottom line, this is what the research shows. Patients who believe in God have better blood pressure than those who don't. So encourage your patients to lead an active faith lifestyle if they believe in it. How many of you have heard about the DASH diet? What does DASH stand for? Dietary approach to stop hypertension. All right. So the DASH diet was developed by the American College of Cardiology, the American Heart Association, and the CDC to combat blood pressure. Okay? And I want to read you a quote from Dr. Sachs. He's from Harvard University. He was on that board. It says, some of the lowest blood pressure observed in industrialized countries have been documented in strict vegetarians. Now, does the DASH diet include meat? Yes, it does. Why? The committee was asked that. And do you know what their response was? To make it more palatable to the American people. Not because there was any scientific backing for it, but what they thought is if we make it about vegetables, fruits, and a whole plant-based diet and we leave out the meat and dairy, people aren't going to stick with it. But not because it had scientific backing. So, we cut out the meat and we get better blood pressure results. Interesting study. Scientists got a group of endurance runners who ate the standard American diet and a group of vegans who were sedentary, meaning they didn't do any exercise whatsoever. They all weighed the same. They were all thin. And at the end of the study, the meat-eating endurance runners, they did have better blood pressure than the non-runners who ate meat, but the sedentary vegans had as much as 18 points lower systolic blood pressure than those who were running 48 miles per week, which was pretty impressive. So, even if you're a couch potato vegan, most of them have better blood pressure than their meat-eating exercisers counterparts. 2 sodas a day equals a 30-pound weight gain at the end of a year. Alcohol intake, it's a linear curve. The more you drink, the higher your blood pressure. Caffeine can increase your systolic by up to 15 points. That may not seem like a lot, but if you're running a blood pressure of 140 and you have that morning Joe, you can have blood pressure up to 155. So it is a significant increase with the caffeine. Some people may ask, are there specific foods that have been studied to lower blood pressure? And the answer is yes. Up there you see, according to the British Medical Journal, that blood pressure medication decreases stroke risk by 25% and MI by 15%. Those exact same numbers were found in studies by people who ate 3 servings of whole grains per day without medication. One cup of hibiscus tea lowers your systolic by about 4 to 6 points. Not a lot. 2 cups a day is as effective in another study as captopril twice daily. Right? Flaxseed is another good one as well. And just for your information, there are some specific foods that have been known or have been shown to have ACE inhibitor properties, which is angiotensin conserving. Help me out here. Angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, just like lisinopril, captopril, things like that. So this is just for your general knowledge. Dr. Tamayo touched a little bit on nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is our friend. If you want some interesting information, you can even Google athletes doping on beet juice, which is pretty impressive. And it's legal. It's not really doping. You're taking a natural substance. It's not detectable by any studies, but it increased their athletic performance. In summary, what the research is showing us, the more plants you eat equals better blood pressure. The more meat you eat indicates worse blood pressure. So when we talk about nutrition, there are 3 principles that I want you to keep in mind. Number 1, eat more plant-based foods. Number 2, anyone know? Decrease salt intake. And number 3, watch your calories. I like this slide. The title of this slide is, what does 500 calories look like? All right, so if you ate a a fried meal, for example, no wonder you're still full. All right, it goes for cheese, meat, rice, potatoes, fruits, and veggies. This is why when I talk to you about soft drinks, this is why people gain weight on soft drinks. They take up no space in your stomach, yet you're packing 300 calories every time you take 2 sodas in. And over time, that equals obesity, plain and simple. And the more weight you have, the higher your blood pressure is going to be. One thing to remember, and you have to remember to tell this to your patients, don't forget about rebound hypertension. What this is, basically, when you take your patients off certain blood pressure medications, you have to do it gradually. There are certain meds you can't stop because you'll get this rebound effect, which could be pretty disastrous. All right, empowerment. This is where I show you how to help your patients or how to implement it in your life. Plan of action. You have to have a plan of action. And I want the audience to help me out. Number 1, design a menu. Number 2, all right, you want to give them a trial run. Okay, I'll step out of the way so you can take pictures. You want to give your patients a trial run. You know, you tell them you have to change your diet and live a certain way forever is a very daunting task to most people. So tell them you want to try them on this for at least a month. 6 weeks is ideal. Okay? So you designate a start and you designate a start and an end run and a start and an end date. 6 weeks is what's recommended. All right, number 3, an accountability partner. That helps. When you have, like it was said in previous lectures, when you have someone that you have to report to, makes it easier to stick with something. All right? Make a specific shopping list, number 4. All right? If you don't make a specific shopping list, you're going to go and you're basically going to fill up your cart with whatever they have lying around. All right? Number 5, what do you have to do? Get rid of the junk. If it's there, you'll eat it. I don't care how healthy you are. If you love chocolate chip cookies and they're in your pantry, you're going to eat them. Plain and simple. No way around that. Number 6, have a few healthy backup meals handy. I call this the emergency stash. What happens? Life happens. You get home. You picked up the kids from school. It was late. You didn't have time to cook. You had a doctor's appointment. What's going to happen when you get home and you're hungry? You're going to eat whatever there is. So I recommend that you have some emergency healthy food in your freezer, in your pantry, something that you can fall back on. It helps your patients become more adherent to the diet. Okay? Number 7. What is number 7? Determine your price. Okay? You got to reward yourself. You get your patients on a plan. Tell them, guess what? At the end of the 6 weeks, you get to go to P.F. Chang's, Cheesecake Factory, whatever your weakness is, and you get to eat whatever you want. All right? You're looking forward to it. Oh, I can't wait for that moment when I know I'm going to have this cheesecake. Okay, fine. You've been really good. You deserve something. All right? So determine what's your prize. Number 8. Someone want to help me out? Create a realistic exercise program. If you've never done an exercise a day in your life, don't buy a $5,000 treadmill. Don't spend a ton of money at the gym. Do something that is going to be realistic. It'll help you stick with it. All right, number 9 is very important. Plan ahead when eating out or eating at someone's house or get-togethers. This is what kills us all. Always, all of us. Okay? You eat a certain way, your parents don't eat that way. Your wife doesn't eat that way, okay? Makes it very, very difficult. But you got to plan ahead. And number 10, prayer and meditation daily. You know what? It works. Before I get to resources, I want to just give you a little bit of a tip. You got to feel your patient out, okay? Not everyone you present this to is going to react the way you want them to, okay? And for those of you who are providers, time is of essence. And you don't always have the time to get into it with people. So what I typically do is I will tell a patient, I say, how willing are you to get your blood pressure under control, get your diabetes under control, and leave your medication behind? Will you do anything? Yes, yes, I'll do anything. Are you willing to give up certain foods? Oh, I don't know about that. You're talking about me. I can never give up. I can never give up my hamburgers. I can never give up this. I can never give up that. So, you have to take in your time into consideration. And I like to share this example with you of something that happened to me. A few years ago, I'm rounding. It's a Saturday morning. I'm trying to finish off my day. And for those of you who know how hospitalists work, you plan your day to spend about, 17 seconds in each patient room? Something about that, right? So I go in there. I see my patient. She had been admitted overnight for uncontrolled diabetes. Her sugars were in the 800s. Okay? She was there with her husband, and she's crying. My heart went out to her. So I sat down. I said, what's going on? She says, I am tired of living with diabetes. I am tired of having to give myself insulin shots. I am tired of taking my medication, and I am tired of having to be in the hospital all the time. What can I do? Is there anything? I am desperate. Okay, so I'll spend a little bit more than 17 seconds in this room. I sit down, I talk to her. I spent half an hour. I talked with her husband, I talked with her. Exercise plan, diet plan, what you're going to eat, what you're not going to eat. And at the end, I'll never forget her words. She said, you know what, doc? Just give me the pill. And you laugh. You're probably laughing right now. You're thinking, oh, I can't believe she said that. But this is society. This is the society that we live in. Okay? Just this last weekend, I gave a health seminar in Houston, Spanish community. Lifestyle, what to eat, what not to eat, exercise, everything. And at the end of the seminar, I have a line of people waiting outside asking me what supplement is good for this and what vitamin is good for this. And I'm thinking, they didn't get it. Because our minds are ingrained. We don't want to make the changes. We want a pill to fix our problem. And that is a very, very big problem. All right, resources. This will help you, especially if you're a provider, because many times you don't have the time to sit and go over all of lifestyle with your patient in the room. So give them some homework, okay? Nothing brings the point across like telling them, you know what, watch Forks Over Knives. And you know what, we live in the Valley, it's subtitled. So your Spanish-speaking patients can watch it as well. Resources for hypertension. 2 good books that I would recommend. How Not to Die by Michael Greger. That one's actually in Spanish, so if your Spanish-speaking population wants to read it. Cómo no morir. And I like this website. It's not my website. This website it's put together by Michael Greger. It has literally, I'm not joking, thousands of videos showing the medical all the medical articles and the evidence to back up lifestyle change. I mean, honestly, you have patients who have multiple sclerosis. They want to say, is there anything that I can eat or I should not be eating for multiple sclerosis? He has it on the website, and he has all the medical literature backing it up. So it's a website that I really do recommend to my patients. All right, to wrap it up, living proof. This is Obed. Obed came to me several months ago because Obed was denied life insurance. He has several kids. He works as a pastor up in the Bryan College Station area. And he tells me, they denied life insurance. I need life insurance. What happened? Well, here are my labs. And I said, you have a hemoglobin A1C of 11.6. And he's like, what does that mean? I said, you're an uncontrolled diabetic. He says, no, I'm not. I don't have diabetes. Well, you do now. He says, my dad had diabetes. I can't have diabetes. I know what it did to my dad. There's no way. You know what, Dr. Santana? I cannot live with diabetes. It is not an option for me. I said, okay, that's the kind of patient I want. So I said, okay. I sat with him. This is what you're going to eat. This is what you're not going to eat. This is how you're going to exercise. Boom. 2 weeks later, I told him to buy a glucometer first. His sugars were running in the 400s and 500s, which would be expected for that A1C. 2 weeks later, his sugars are in the 100s. 3 weeks later, he's calling me saying he feels dizzy. I said, take your blood pressure. Blood pressure was 88/72. I said, let's cut back on your blood pressure meds. He was maxed out on metoprolol and Diavan. I took off the Diavan, we cut his metoprolol down, we weaned it off over a week. Presently, Obed has lost 55 pounds. He's a new man. He eats a totally different way. He is off all medications. Ladies and gentlemen, this is powerful. This is the most powerful thing I have seen in medicine up to now. This is how I feel sometimes as a lifestyle medicine doctor. All right. Just a side note, there are some problems with blood pressure that come from enzymes or neurotransmitters, mainly catecholamines, renin-angiotensin, cortisol, problems with kidney vasculature. Okay, what am I referring to? Secondary hypertension. All right, if your patients have secondary hypertension or someone else has it, you have to discuss this with your doctor. That's just a side note, okay? The changes that I have shown you here are mainly for people who have essential hypertension, okay? But that does not mean that your secondary hypertensions cannot benefit from this. Anyone can benefit from this, all right? I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your attention, for your participation, and thank you to the RGV Conference Center for having me.
Bravo, bravo. I want to thank Dr. Santana for this timely presentation on hypertension. And I hope you were taking notes. Thank you again, Dr. Santana. Now, our next presenter is a very good friend of mine. I think they're all good friends of mine. Dr. Errol Bryce. Dr. Bryce is an international speaker. He has been discussing lifestyle medicine for many years. He practices in Dallas. He is an adjunct assistant clinical professor of medicine at the University of North Texas Health Science Center. Dr. Bryce has been using lifestyle medicine in his practice for many years and is also seen a lot of healthcare miracles. And as he prepares this slide, I want you to sit back and start thinking, why do people go to the doctor? Why do people have some type of diseases? As physicians, for us to make the right treatment plan, we need to make the correct diagnosis. If we do not make that correct diagnosis, then our treatment plan will not help. So Dr. Bryce is going to be discussing what is the real cause. Are we actually treating the real cause? Let us put our hands together for Dr. Errol Bryce.
You guys have been sitting for a long time. What if we get everybody to stand? And let's get some blood to your frontal lobe because I'm going to need it for the next 45 minutes. Let me put this mic. I'm going to ask you to just go forward. Just reach for the sky. And your hands have almost half of your brain. So just rub your hands like this. Just rub your hands. When you do like this, you're stimulating your whole brain. And then your feet just stand up like this. There you go. All right? So what about an activity that gets all the muscles working? Okay, so we're going to just put like this, and then we're going to bounce it real hard. Okay, come on, not like this. Come on, bounce it real hard. Now, if music runs in your family, you can start put some rhythm to it. There we go. Come on. Left, 2, 3. Come on. And we're going to do this for 30 seconds. Here we go. 6. Say it with me. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, come on, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 16. All right, you may be seated. Okay. Thank you for Dr. Cooper for allowing me to participate in this conference. I will be sharing with you something that I think you've never heard about it. And if you have heard about it before, this will be a new perspective because I'll be focusing a lot on what we do about it. Now, I prepared to speak mostly to physicians. So I'm going to change the way I talk about these slides so that if you are just a patient, you'll be able to understand. All right? I'm going to need, some of you might need some tissue during the procedure, but if you work with me, there might be some sad areas, but at the end, you'll walk out of here being very happy that you came to this session. So at the end of it, you'll be a changed person in a lot of ways. You might see yourself for the very first time. And most importantly, you'll be able to try help somebody. Changing slides. Okay, go down. Dr. Cooper is not paying me to do this. And no other companies paying me. However, I'm an ambassador for a foreign country. And I just want to let you know that. My objectives is to help you to understand a little known risk factor for various common diseases. A lot of you might not know what risk factors are. Well, Dr. Santana just covered high blood pressure, hypertension. A lot of you, if you get a stroke, it's because you had hypertension. So hypertension is a risk factor. Eating the wrong foods, not exercising, these are risk factors. So I'm going to cover one that you might not have heard of before. I'm going to try to link chronic toxic stress to a condition that is called dysregulation of the amygdala. Do not go to your physician and ask him about dysregulation of the amygdala. He will look at you like this and he say, what are you Googling? Because your physician has never heard of this before. Okay? So don't be shocked if your physician doesn't know what this means. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about this. Also, I'm going to help you to learn. The word therapeutic just means treatment. I'm going to show you some steps that we can take to address this regulation. All right, so I want to start with something that physicians have to do. You go to school for 4 years, you do 3 years of residency, and then they give you this impossible exam. The one, to get my license here, I'm trying to remember where I took it. I think it was in Houston, before most of you were born. I won't tell you how old I am. But that exam was 3 days. From 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, 3 days. I think they used to call it flex so I forgot what I used to call it. But it's not something that replaced step 3. Those of you know that. So I'm going to go share about this board question. And oh, good, got a red point here. So this is a 30-year-old female was admitted to the hospital for a bariatric for surgery, bariatric surgery. Her BMI is 70. That means she weighed about 400 pounds. Before she was admitted to the hospital, she already had a previous surgery. She had another one called a Roux-en-Y bypass that she had months before. And now she had a lot of complications with vomiting and bile that required more surgery. When you talk to the lady, she was admitted to the hospital 20 different times for complications from the surgery. She was diagnosed with adrenal insufficiency, means that her adrenal gland that gives the cortisol and all those hormones was just not working properly. And because of that, they placed her on high-dose steroids, okay? They give her nutrition through her vein. That's what the TPN is. But they had to stop it because her liver functions became very high. And she continued to have a lot of nausea and vomiting. Now her weight was not 410 anymore. She was down to 227 pounds. When you examine her, because first they take a history, then they examine you. When they examine her, her tummy had a lot of pink lines on it called stria. She had a lot of skin lesions, and her muscle tone and mass she was very flabby, okay? Now, once you examine somebody, first you take a history, then you examine them, then you do labs, right? You do labs. If you don't do labs, you're just not a good physician. So, her albumin level is 1.7. So, medical students, what does that mean? What's the M word? Malnutrition, right? All right. So malnutrition is an issue here. Her bilirubin was high, and we want to know, is it the direct or indirect? Well, we tell you the direct is high. What do we know, medical students? I'm going to get you thinking, all right? The director of the medical school is here, and you have to earn some points. You can't, this is not a free thing. You got to learn something today, all right? Okay, so the alkaline phosphatase is 183. Wow. Okay, normals here. Liver enzymes are elevated. Protein, total protein is low. Transferrin is 29. What do we know, medical students, from this? The transferrin is only 29. What can we say here? That it's not. Hemochromatosis, right? So we know it's not hemochromatosis. So giving you some information there. Hepatitis profile is completely negative, so we know that's not what's causing it. So here are the 4 questions. After they give you this question in the boards, then you have to get an answer. You have to get almost 70% or more, or you fail the boards. Okay? So the question is this person suffering from the most likely cause for her current condition is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Okay? You might have heard of fatty liver disease. Okay, it's the same thing here. Non-alcoholic, they call it NASH, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Bulimia, so I'm sure even though you're not in medical school, you've heard of bulimia, where you eat and vomit, you eat the food and they go out and vomit it up. Okay? Or was it because of the TPN that's affecting the liver? Or was it because of malnutrition and because of the steroids that's causing this? So, medical students, A. Who votes for A? Got 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys are smart. So we got 5A. Okay, B. Any B's? All right. Anybody for C? TPN. Okay, we got 4. All right. Anybody for D? Malnutrition, allergic Christian disease. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, physicians. Where are the physicians? Okay, what's the diagnosis? Which one is right? Physician. We got 1 physician. D. Okay. All right, so there's the experience on the back. You want 1 bright physician. He passed his board on the first try. Okay, the answer is D. So this lady here, 20 times in the hospital, 400 pounds overweight, multiple surgical admissions to the hospital. We are poking and prodding and cutting and sticking this lady. Is it possible that we're missing the real cause? So my question is, what is the real cause for this patient's condition? So I got you thinking. I want to work you through a process that I hope when this is over. I got into my dilemma. Where I've taken you now, I got it about 10 years ago. Over the last 20, 30 years in Fort Worth, I've been taking my patients because I'm trying to get their attention. I say, listen, you can't be eating this Kentucky Fried Chicken every day and expect me to go. I've already put you on 5 blood pressure medicine, and your blood pressure is still high. Help me a little bit with the Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so what I do, I advertise to all of them, say, why don't you all come spend a weekend with me in a hotel? So when I did that, 300 came. We went to the Gaylord Texan, spent a whole weekend in the Gaylord Texan, and then instead of a 2% success in the office, my success rate went up to about 30-40%. A lot of my patients start coming back, changing their diet. So this lady was one of them. She came to my practice. She had systemic sclerosis. She was dying. She was referred to me from a rheumatologist. When she came, I was angry because she was obviously dying. So this rheumatologist sent her for me to put her on hospice. So I said, why? Her primary care physician could do the same thing. So I started talking to her, and she said, Dr. Bryce, Dr. Lehman begged me to change the primary care physician and switch to you. He said, I don't understand it, but the patients that I have with this doctor, all the patients are responding to the medicines, while with the other doctors, they're dying, they're doing. She was a young patient. She had a master, taught at the university, and she was literally dying before his eyes. So she came to me, she came through the seminar, she changed her diet. Her problem was chips, Doritos chips. She ate a whole bag every day. She has total systemic sclerosis. She couldn't walk, she was in a wheelchair. When I examined her, her breast was as hard as rock. 6 weeks after coming to the seminar, she came back to my practice, and when I examined her, her breast was soft, like normal breasts. Instead of being in a wheelchair, she was walking. And she was so excited. This actually is a video, but I don't have time for the video, where she told her story of how she got off the meat, got off the chips, fruits, vegetables, and was just doing extremely well. So well that we made this video. And 3 months later, she was dead. So I went to her father and said, what happened? He said, Dr. Bryce, she recognized her problem was the meat, the potato chips, the Doritos chips. That was her problem. And she decided she couldn't leave it. And she went back to the meat and the Doritos chips. I was devastated. I was devastated. Here's somebody that I'm telling that if you change your diet, if you start exercising, if you do well, you're gonna be fine. And it happened. And still, so I realized there was something else that I was missing. Something else that I was missing. So I started searching, and I started asking myself, and every patient I'm seeing, what's happening in your head? Long story short, it's almost as if there's a hand that was guiding me. I started thinking of a study I published for American College of Physicians on rheumatology years ago as an abstract form. The only award I ever received in my life, the American College of Physicians gave me an award for research, flew me to San Francisco for that. But I hated it because it was on fibromyalgia. It's a dead-end diagnosis. I don't want to be the world's famous person on fibromyalgia, so I refused to publish it. It was only published in an abstract form. But in that study, it showed that people who had trauma, who moved frequently, sexual abuse, physical abuse, ended up with fibromyalgia. And with that, I start looking, is there a hint there? Then my daughter, Jody, one day, Daddy, there's a TED Talk that you should look at. The TED Talk talked about adverse childhood experiences, a study done by Vincent Felletti and others in San Diego. And so let me tell you about this. This study here looked at 17,000 people and asked them 20 questions. I'm going to show you these questions, as we go through. Number one, did you lose a parent or sibling through death or divorce? If you say yes, you get a score of 1. So as I go through, I want you to score yourself, and I want each of you to tell me your score. You add it up at the end of it. So did you lose a parent or sibling through death or divorce? If you grew up with anybody else other than your mother and your father, you have a score of 1. Sorry. Can I go back? Did a parent or sibling often swear at you, put you down, humiliate you, or isolate, or act in a way that made you feel afraid? Okay? Number 2, did you live with a parent or sibling who was a problem drinker or who abused other drugs? So if somebody in your family used alcohol or some kind of drugs in your family, okay? Were you bullied by or afraid of kids at school or in your neighborhood? Did you live with an adult or sibling who struggled with a mental illness or some serious illness or special illness? Is someone in your family had a psychiatric disorder, very sick, and just couldn't care for you as you should? That's a score of 1. Did a parent or sibling often push, grab, or slap or throw something at you, or even hit you so hard that you had bruises, marks, or other injuries? If that's positive for you, you score 1. Did you live in a home where you went without clean clothes or enough to eat, or could not afford a doctor, or you felt you had no one to protect you? Give yourself 1. Did someone in your household go to jail? Give your score a 1. Did a parent, sibling, or another person at least 5 years older touch your body in a sexual way or ask you to do something similar? Give yourself a 1. Was a parent or sibling in your household sometimes hit, kicked, or slapped, or even threatened with a weapon? So what they found out in doing all these 17,000 people, that you had recurrent physical abuse, recurrent emotional abuse, sexual abuse, emotional or physical neglect. There is also, within the home, alcohol or drug abuser, incarcerated household member, someone chronically depressed, suicidal, institutionalized, or mentally ill, or mother being treated violently. Or if you missed one or 2 parents, then these are the categories. Now, how did you score? I don't want you to tell me, but I hope you made your score. If I were to ask you about your score, almost 70 to 80% of you have had at least 1. And a good half of you have 4 or more. My score is 5. If you have 4 or more, it's devastating. If you have 1, it's devastating. And so I'm going to show you some statistics here on what came from the study. But what I found out in San Diego, let me show you a little bit of the physiology, that the people who went through this, they have damage to the amygdala. And so the normal fight and flight response is not there. And so the different parts of the brain is overacting constantly, and you have a chronic toxic stress, and this cannot be turned off. I got this slide from Herbert Benson from Harvard University. They've been talking about this for over 30 years as part of relaxation response and mindfulness, but not making that link to trauma. What happened to you as a child? And so this, in every one of your patients, in yourself, you can, this is what's causing the epidemic of diabetes, high blood pressure, and all the different problems. And here is the link of it. Because of this uncomfortable situation, people find a way to turn it off. and you turn it off with porn. Just by looking at porn, you can have a rush of dopamine. And women don't know that, but men can look at you, take off your clothes, have intercourse with you without your permission, and you don't even know, and have a release of dopamine. And that is why it's so pervasive. Food. This drives even more dopamine than porn. And the whole works. Pride, drugs, music. Yes, music with a lot of rhythm also gets the same effect. Worrying, promiscuity. You have a lot of these with over 50 sexual partners in their lifetime. Vegging before television, abusive, controlling, or just denying, just living a life denying problems. In my country, Jamaica, the motto is no problem, man. You go to Jamaica on vacation, one thing you learn is no problem, man. This is where this comes from. Just about denying the problem that exists. And if you look at Fox Television and CNN, they talk about somebody there, I won't call any name, that this is his problem, performing to gain control. Okay? Everybody has this problem that we're facing. And so Schreider and his student took rats, and they put rats in one of those mazes, and they put cocaine in one room and put normal chow in another room. And after a while, the rats learn which one is what, and they start going to that room with the cocaine. And even after you remove the cocaine, the rats are still going to it. Well, they took out cocaine and put Oreo cookies. And the rats had the same behavior as the cocaine. And we're finding out now that high-fat, high-sugar foods are drugs that help to do the same effect. And so with the ACE study, you find if you have, these are people who don't have any adverse childhood experience. If you have one or more, you see the death rate by age is significant. So those who have 4 or more die much earlier because of adverse experiences. Depression, the more adverse childhood experience you have, the more numbers you say yes to, the more your chances of getting depressed. Smokers, same thing. Alcoholism, same thing. Drug abuse, people on the streets. Well, again, this is a study of almost 8,000 people. There you see the same effect. The more adverse child experiences, the more these people are drug abusers that you find. Same experience with over 50 sexual partners. You have individuals that they sit down and these guys, sexual partners, run in the 10s, 50s, 100. Okay? They're literally seeking for love, trying to find a way to turn off this mechanism. 23 studies was done in this review, obesity review, and show that the more your ACE, the more your chances of being morbidly obese. Diabetes. 38 studies done in this review, including PTSD. These are linked to these adverse childhood experiences. These toxic stress also linked to diabetes. And coming to the valley, I recognize there's a high Hispanic population. And so you'll be asking your question, how is it in the Hispanic community? It is actually higher in the Hispanic community than the original study. The original study showed a rate of 67% of people who had one or more. And we looked at 5,000 Hispanics, and with one or more, it was 77%. Okay, linked to depression, cigarettes, coronary artery disease, cancer, COPD, diabetes, wasn't shown, or asthma, but all of these conditions linked to that. People heading for prison, adverse childhood experience, the pipeline. You'd be surprised to learn that over 100% of the men on death row had 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. It's a devastating condition. And in medicine, in practice, we're going through totally ignoring this problem. Let's change gears a little bit. These people were on drugs, eating themselves to death, morbidly obese. You can't turn the table up. They can't stop eating. What are they looking for? It turns out that these chronically traumatized individuals are looking for supportive, therapeutic relationships. Anybody got it? What are they looking for? What does that mean? So instead of cutting these people apart, poking them with all kind of medicines and drugs and all of that, could it be that we're missing what we need to do for these individuals? So these people, this lady here, she was sexually abused from age 8 to age 14. She literally hanged herself in the back of a psychiatric hospital floor when she was about 40. Her name was Anna. Nobody ever asked her, what happened to you? If we're going to make a difference, we have to do something to stop it from happening. So prevention is very important. I'm not a pediatrician, but I'm a father with 3 girls. And we have to be conscious of the effect of this and start doing something towards it. Early detection and intervention is very, very important. Creating a safe, strengthening, and healing relationship, an environment that cares for people as they go through this is crucial as we go forward. So the one question we need to ask, as JFK started by saying, ask not what is wrong with you, but what happened to you. This is a question that we should be asking everybody in our household, everybody in our family, every patient we meet. We need to do that. So in my practice now, everybody is getting, not everybody, but most patients who I think at risk is having a ACE score. I do it either formally or informally, where I must know what's happening to them. And so one thing that must happen to get out of this, we must provide a stable, caring, and supportive relationship as a step number 1, as a therapeutic for this problem. Somebody has to come next to somebody, become their friend, and be there for them for the rest of their lives, to work them through. If someone doesn't step up to help that person, they will die from obesity. Don't care what Dr. Cooper does and how many surgery you do. If that person doesn't have a caring person reaching out to them, they will go right back to it. They'll lose the weight and they put it back on. So, my friends, the African proverb, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping in a room with a mosquito. You can make a difference. 99 studies talked about cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness, and expressive writing. What it is, cognitive behavior therapy and mindfulness, is getting people to understand what's going on in their head. Explain what's happening to you, and explain what you're doing with your food. why you're doing, why you're acting, why you're going to places, what kind of relationship, why you're going from mujer to mujer to mujer, explaining what's happening inside you. This must be happening inside your head. You must understand. That's what mindfulness is all about. I was thrown away when I was 9 months of age. Sexually abused, physically abused, severe abject poverty. And I was eventually left on a woman's doorstep who didn't know who I was. Months later, she found out that it was her grandchild. And I grew up in a situation where she took me to church 4 times a week. Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday all day, Sunday. Every time the church door opened, I was there. So I had a chance to grow up in a nurturing environment. She was always there for me. In order to make these changes, your diet has to change. So she was my loving, caring relationship. You must make a decision to change. If you don't change your diet, you can't change, because epigenetic changes must occur. Exercise is important. As you move your body, the muscles release BDNF that fix the dysregulation of the amygdala. For students, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, from exercising. This is important. Walking releases GLUT4 transporter. It is in step 1. For those who want to take the exam, it is in step 1. Muscle exams, muscle movement releases GLUT4 transporter that lowers blood sugar and reverses diabetes. This afternoon at 3:15, I'll be talking more about this, and as you go through. So you a caring relationship, dietary changes, exercise, sleep. You have to be able to get to sleep before 10 o'clock with nothing on your stomach. So not eating within 5 hours of bedtime. All of these things must occur to make this change. Fortunately, at 9 months of age, I was adopted into a blue zone. And in the blue zone, I grew up hearing about this every day. I made a decision as an adult that I was going to adapt all of these changes so that my brain can be totally changed. And the guy I am today is totally different from the guy I was when I was 25. Totally different. I came across one relationship that made all the difference, and it's this one. In Isaiah 49, verses 15 to 17, it says, "Can a woman forget her nursing child and not have compassion on the child of her womb?" When I read that, I changed it up. I changed it up, and I put my name in it. Can a woman forget Errol, her nursing child, and not have compassion on Errol, the son of her womb? Surely they may. Yet I will not forget you, Errol. See, Errol, I have inscribed you on the palm of my hands, and your walls are continually before me. Nothing happens to me unless God permits it. I went through medical school. It cost me about $130,000. When I graduated, Castillo gave me my certificate. I never owed a cent. Without a mother, without a father, without grants, God provided for me. That's what I live for today. He is my caring relationships. And the food that I eat, my lifestyle, everything, I ask him to help me to do. Right now I'm struggling with sugar. Sugar is my biggest problem, and I'm going to worry about it. I asked him, I said, Lord, you take that sugar from me. And I'm going to wait until he does. If he doesn't take it, I'm going to struggle with it. So Everything else, I'm pretty much have under wraps. Any time for 2 questions? Yes. Okay, so any 2 questions? I'll come to you with the mic. Did I do such a great job? No questions? Any comments?
I had a question in regards to the amygdala. I think it kind of got answered. I wanted to know if there's permanent damage to that when you said that we were in the constant fight or flight response state. But then you mentioned about exercise and that causes the release of that BDNF. So can you explain?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. That's the crux of the talk, that this permanent dysfunction of the amygdala, it's existing in all of us. All of us. And it explains why you eat the way you eat. I stand here as proof that the amygdala can be turned off. And there are over 200 studies saying, yes, you can come back from it. Without surgeries, without a ton of medicines, you can come back. There is hope. But it will take a caring environment. You must change your diet. Exercise has to be a part of it. And most importantly, you must make a decision. You can have this thing coming through your ears every day, your doctor, Dr. Cooper, begging you, talking to you. But unless you make a decision to do something, it will never get turned off. Once you make the decision, find out what you need to do, yes, you can get it done. Thank you so much for that question. Great question. Anybody else? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bryce. Well, we have come to the end of half of the program, and I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank all of you for being here, and I want to invite you back because we have very important talks that you're going to miss if you're not here. Dr. Enrique Griego, a very known family practitioner in the Valley, he will be assisting with chairing the second part of the program. So I want you to come back. We have some lunch for the international guests, the speakers, and those who registered online. And we have meals in the concession hall. It's all plant-based, but I tasted the meals this week and they're fantastic. We have vegetarian soup, hummus and chip, salad and walnut balls, mock steak, just a lot of great plant-based. So if you've never had a day on plant-based meal, you can stay here or you can go into concession hall and you can stop at my booth. Inside, we have great meals for you. But I want to see you back here at 1:10, because this information is powerful and we want to fill up the house for our upcoming speakers. I'll see you at 1:10, everybody. Thank you so much.